Hey guys, we'll get started, 9 o'clock. Look, I just wanted to welcome you, obviously. I've even got a welcome slide coming up, so I'll say that for a minute. Introduce myself. I'm the academic lead of the program. My name's Matt Sutton. Associate Professor Claire Baldwin is your course coordinator, and will be running everything for you today and running everything for you probably next 2 years. Yeah. Look, I just wanted to. We got lots of. Firstly, acknowledge that we're on Kaurna land. We're on unceded Kaurna land, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I also appreciate that lots of you may be here in Adelaide for the first time, and wanted to just provide you with a bit of context as to what Kaurna land means in terms of the land. So this is a map of obviously Australia with the Aboriginal lands that are sort of as well defined as anyone's been able to put them together. And then if we look at where we are, we're in little old Adelaide, and so Kaurna land stretches down the Fleurieu Peninsula, sort of where the launch pad off to Kangaroo Island, what we refer to as Kangaroo Island is, and sort of extends up towards nearly Port Pirie, which is also where we have now got a physiotherapy program running for its second year as well. So that's just a little introduction to Kaurna land. I would also just like to give you my own special AI welcome. I love artificial intelligence. But beyond that, I haven't got much to say to you other than I'm really proud of the program that we have and the staff that we have that will be teaching you. We are here really for your success, to reach your goals throughout your journey, and we appreciate everyone's journey is different. It was really interesting. I was supervising our students yesterday in Health to Go, which hopefully you've had a look at. And I didn't appreciate, I said, oh look, I'm going to be doing the orientation, we're having the orientation tomorrow. And all of them said, and really surprised, God, I was so nervous. I was really nervous when I came in. Even the guys that have been here for 3 years were saying they were really nervous on orientation day. So I understand, it is potentially, not all of you will be nervous, but yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. What I want to be able to do for you is to reassure you that you have all the support you need. All we ask of you is to engage with us, to really commit to your study and to becoming a physiotherapist. We're all been in the profession for a long time. We've all been clinicians, and we love the profession. And so we really take a lens of you guys being physiotherapists pretty much from day one. And so that's the lens that we want you to take as well. You appreciate your students, but your master's students, your physiotherapy students, you've got APRA registration. We want you to be thinking like physiotherapists, and we will do everything we can to help you succeed in that. And so that's sort of one of the big philosophies we have within our program. There's lots of information you're going to get, but you'll have access to this information at any time. But really, we want you to engage with us. If you've got any concerns, any questions, you feel like your journey has some barriers that are difficult to overcome, we're here to help you. We want all of you to succeed. That's all I wanted to say today. I'll be seeing a lot of you guys, both as teaching. I teach into the musculoskeletal program, but also in supervision. And so I'll hand over to Claire and for run proceedings for the rest of the day. Thank you, Claire.
I was going to say, while Matt's here, do you want to tell us a little bit about what your academic lead role is?
Oh, sure.
Like in terms of you're going to meet lots of physio staff over the day, but what's that? And tell us, what is your actual interest area in physio? So when these people want to pepper you with questions, tell us a bit about you.
Thank you. Ad hoc. So ad hoc question. So academic lead. So so we've got some leadership roles within the program. Claire will talk to more about that later on. So as academic lead, I'm really responsible for, we say what the outward-facing sort of lens or approach in terms of our program has to be accredited. So in order for you guys at the end of your 2 years here to be eligible for registration on the program, our program as a whole needs to be accredited by the Australian Physiotherapy Council. Why am I going down this pathway? Well, my job is to make sure that that accreditation remains current. So for example, we're going to have a full re-accreditation next year, in which we'll get, the APC come, they kick the tyres, they look at our curriculum, they do all of the things, look at our staffing, our placements, and make sure that it's fit for purpose, and they're confident that everyone who goes through this program will come out a safe and effective physiotherapist. And so that's my responsibility to make sure that stays in place. That's my role in the program. In terms of my interest areas, up until about 2 years ago, I was still working clinically. I've been a physiotherapist for over 20 years. My area of interest is in musculoskeletal. I've worked across sort of both public and private, but my main area is in advanced scope physiotherapy. I worked in the emergency department over at Flinders for 10 years. Stopped that 2 years ago to really focus on academia. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Thank you, Faye.
Thank you. Just because I knew that otherwise when I show his face on the slide shortly, he'll have disappeared. And so at least you'll have a good memory of Matt when I show and talk through our team shortly. And he does love artificial intelligence. So all things education around sort of coming out with helping us with cool ways to teach. So that's a really lovely skill set to have in our teaching program.
Thank you, Claire.
So thank you, Matt.
And I look forward to seeing you all throughout the next 2 years.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And I'll add my welcome and acknowledgement of country that we are here on Kaurna lands. I acknowledge their elders past and present, and that the important role that their culture still plays in their lives, but also in Australian culture and that broader society as we partner to reconcile and learn with each other and move forwards together. All right, so there is a bit of housekeeping in the start of it because I recognise that some people are brand new to Flinders and some people have been here before, but it's always good time just to do a bit of a pulse check and make sure that you're feeling as comfortable as possible with the things you can get organised in your onboarding for study for the year. So hopefully there is a whole range of resources that the university organises for us in courses. And things about how you can get familiar with Flinders. So there are resources about finding your way at Flinders available. I should also say that after today, this session is being live streamed and recorded, so we will be able to get all these information and slides, of which as some of you that were here early saw me screen clicking saw. Some people were only sending me their content in the minutes before we were getting started, so you will get a copy of these slides. But this year I tried to really make sure that most of the key information from today also mirrored what was in the MPT handbook that got sent out with your letter, sort of clarifying and making sure you're aware of today. So hopefully between the handbook, between the slides from today, and between the flow page, so we have an online learning page for all things Master of Physio information. Across those three sources, you'll be able to find the links and follow up. So I appreciate that there's a lot of information. If you are taking notes today, probably what the best thing I would do is maybe just make some of the key action points or the things that you think you might want to follow up on, because some of it will be applicable to you and some of it might not be. It's going to feel like a lot of information we know, so maybe, I don't know, you can approach today however you like, but if you go with the just listen and just try and get the vibe and the sense and absorb and take in what you can, I think that would be a really positive outcome from today, and you can certainly, there'll be a way to catch up on the written materials to go back through it if there's anything that you've missed from there. Importantly, if you need to connect for Wi-Fi for today, I don't know that we've got any particular activities that require this, but you are able to connect and access the internet while you're here on campus. All right, so that's the getting you started, getting you connected online, and now we welcome you to the MPT. So you are our cohort 14, which is very exciting. Clearly I can't fit 14 pictures on the slide here, but in the very top left there is our very first cohort, and at the bottom right there, I can't even remember if they were last year's or the year before. To be honest, time just flies and everyone sort of melds into this wonderful group of graduates that we've got out there doing fantastic things. But in terms of my own academic journey, I was here for the very first year of that cohort 14. I was just finishing my PhD and I was employed casually teaching in the cardiorespiratory course. I then took a position at UniSA for a number of years and taught there, and then came back to Flinders about 7-ish years ago, I think. So yeah, I recognise the familiar faces in there. Then there's a little bit of gap in my recollection, and then yeah, getting to know all you wonderful people again. So it's really exciting. So I can't remember how many students we had in that first cohort, but that's probably literally all of them in the photo there, plus a staff member. So it's, well, 13, 15 people we started with, and now you've got a wonderful group of 100 people to be able to learn from and share this journey with. So we think that's really exciting. The program has also moved spaces over time. So back when we started, we were at a building called like a health sciences building at the REPAT campus. The REPAT is the Repatriation General Hospital. So it's mainly sort of been for Defence Veteran Services in Adelaide, but also as a public health service as well. That's just about 5 or 10 minutes down the road towards the city, and we still have that building there, and now that building's getting increasingly used for some student clinics. We have placement activity happening in that building and in the adjoining wards of the hospital services there. So we're still connected there, but then a few years ago we moved onto this part of campus. We used to be out there with occupational therapy, and now we're all here together with lots of the other allied health and nursing as well. So in terms of what you can expect for today, you've got me from now until actually 10 o'clock. Poor Will is unwell this morning, so I will present his slides on behalf of the Flinders Uni Physio Students Association. We do have a couple of guest speakers coming in today. So one is the South Australian Sports Medical Association. So that's some of the professional associations that we partner with to try and support you in extracurricular activities and opportunities while you're learning. So Danielle's going to come in the morning. Later in the day, we'll hear from Casey from the Australian Physio Association. So that's a similar type of connection that we have. And in the middle, I'll go more into sort of about the specifics of some of the teaching and learning in our degree. And we'll have Kelly come and talk, who's our placement coordinator, which I know is probably what people want lots of information on and want to get started organising with some of their placement requirements. So that's when we'll hear from Kelly. And then in the afternoon, so we'll have morning tea in there, and then there'll be a lunch break. When we get to lunch, we're going to probably try and sort of pair you up maybe if or in small groups if it works with people that know Flinders versus not. Aside from eating and getting some sunshine and enjoying whatever's out in the courtyard, I do have like a self-tour bingo to make sure you can find some places around campus rather than us kind of, corralling large groups of people. So, I don't know, have a fun treasure hunt with that. And then in the afternoon, there'll be 3 activities and rooms that we rotate through. So just before the lunch break is when I'll give you a little bit of a colour sticky note sign just to be able to divide us up. And then in the afternoon, we'll reconvene in the upstairs rooms where you'll spend time with actually me, not Matt. It was a bit of a juggle because we've got a few orientation sessions going on today. But I'll sort of go through just an induction to the prac room, make sure that we've got some of the other admin parts sorted for the day if we haven't got through them this morning. The other room will have some of our staff that are topic coordinating for your semester 1 topics, so you can have a meet and greet and see them from there. And then I've also got the student representatives coming in, so they'll give you an off the record, you can ask them anything, Q&A, get their experience of how they've found the studies so far and any tips and tricks that they've got for you. So, much more sort of social in the afternoon. And I guess one reason I know it's a long day, but we want to bring you together is because we think the social element of your learning is really, really important. You know, we're here as staff to help and guide, but the research would suggest that the people who are able to be most successful and have the best experience in terms of their well-being along the way and the journey are people who sort of reach out and sort of put that time into practice and make those social connections in the cohort. That's not just so that you can reduce the risk of any feelings of isolation. It's also because you get that, iron sharpens iron. You bounce ideas of each other, you learn from each other, you develop those professional connections so that you can actually hone each other's skills and things like that as well. Because we are a relatively, 100 people can be hard to get to know. You spend a lot of time together this year, but next year when you go on placements, you might be paired with somebody else or in a small group of people on a placement. And your ability to be able to connect with people, to network fairly quickly, whether that's with students or when you get into a placement site, is going to be really important because you're always going to be working in a team or a group in whatever workplace you're in. So this chance to be able to connect with each other, find out how you're going to work together so that everybody who around you can be successful and bring everyone along with you. So that really relies on you all. So we do our best to be able to set up a learning environment to facilitate social connections, but really the cohorts that we see thrive are those people who are, maybe put themselves out of a little bit of a social comfort zone. They walk across the room, they work with somebody new and different. And you'll see in how we teach, we do a combination of like free choice things with who you get to work with, but sometimes we do elements of pairing you with other people just to try and sort of make that happen. So that also reduces some of that load on you of having to work through that. So we're behind the scenes, we're very thoughtful and intentional around how we try to teach to give you the best opportunity to get that variety of learning from and with other people. Alrighty, so in terms of some of those other introductions, you've had Matt introduce himself before, and he said that I was Claire, and that is me. I'm the course coordinator. So in terms of our physio team, there's Matt, myself, and Kelly, who kind of have most of that leadership sort of program overview oversight. So as Matt said, his main responsibilities are for the things that happen sort of connecting outside of the university, whether that's with, industry, placement partners, making sure all the accreditation and stuff is all sorted, which it is and fine. And then my responsibility is mainly for the broad curriculum as a whole, making sure that things are together, getting the topic coordinators to liaise with each other, sort of just really managing the rest of the parts of our physio team. And of course, placements are a huge part of our curriculum and program. So Kelly oversees the placement program and she can tell you a bit more about her role later, but that goes from everything from sourcing the placements, getting the legal agreements in place, working through the student allocations, making sure that everybody's had the required depth and breadth of practice experience to be able to meet the requirements of the program. And not intentionally, but conveniently, Matt's an MSK person, I'm a cardiorespiratory person, and Kelly's a neuro person. So we all have teaching and interest areas still very much clinically based in the program. In terms of the rest of our team, look, there's lots of different ways that you can think about physio scope of practice. Sometimes we talk about cardio, musculoskeletal and neuro as core areas, and they are core areas that every physio student across all of Australia and New Zealand has to cover, regardless of what program you're at. You also have to cover a range of settings, which means you have to be able to work in acute hospitals, you have to be able to work in rehabilitation, whether that's inpatient, hospital, outpatient or community. So sometimes that falls and aligns with these different areas, sometimes it doesn't, or it's a mix. And you also need to be able to work across the lifespan. So that means even if you haven't had huge amounts of experience with different lifespan groups, you need to have the skills and have at least have had that taster from children all the way through to end of life and older adults as well. So we have some other members of our core musculoskeletal team there, and you'll meet Catherine's going to come down shortly this morning and introduce herself, and you'll meet Matt this afternoon, and you'll meet Alex this afternoon. You won't get to meet Tam and Belinda today, but if you see them walking around the corridors looking stressed in the next few days, it's because they're running neuro exams, but surely they're not nearly as stressed as the poor final years, although hopefully they're not that stressed because they've actually prepared wonderfully. And they're always very, very successful. In terms of the rest of our cardio teaching teams, we have Adele and Julia. You won't see them till the second part of the year because they're still on maternity leave, and we are currently recruiting to another cardio lecturer position because our dear Tracy retired last year. I'm not sure if any of you got to meet Tracy, but that will be hard shoes to fill. But we are expanding that team. And then we have a range of staff who, again, probably mainly teach in musculoskeletal, but they have other interest and focus areas as well. So Jill can do absolutely everything. If I could carbon copy Jill, that would be amazing because she does she does PED, she does all sorts. Jared also holds a role supporting our rural students, and so regional and rural health is a real passion area of his, along with musculoskeletal and orthopaedics. And then we have Tori, who, again, works in musculoskeletal but is still a private practice owner most of her time during the week and has a focus on continence and pelvic health. So we've got a really diverse team. All right, so when it comes to talking to us and communicating with us, there's a few different ways that we suggest that this works best. So as Matt said, we want to make sure we're always approachable, and you can always, feel free to contact any member of our team. But generally, I think these principles help everything to work smoothly and help you to know where to go. So often what staff will do is when we want to get information out to all students is we'll post on our Flinders Learning Online pages through announcements. And you should be on the pages for the topics you're enrolled in. So topic-specific things will come through those pages. And I think I've only put one post out to you all on our new MPT page. Did anyone get that this week? Something, I know it felt a bit random, but I can't remember. There was something about careers info, and then there was something else and something else. Yeah. Awesome. Phew. Because it's always a bit of fun getting everyone on the right pages. So that's another thing that you'll get. So you'll get some more general posts through that page. The other thing is it's using your university email. So you may have, of course, you'll have other email accounts, and you may configure your email to push things, from account to account so you see it. But what we really want is you to, for your communication with us, is to keep your university business. So if you use your uni email when you contact us, that's the contact email we will use when we contact you. In the student handbook, I gave a couple of bits of advice about how that email communication might work. So as staff, we're comfortable for you to call us by our first name, so you don't need to use, while I like being an associate professor, I don't really love being called it because at the end of the day, I'm just Claire. So I'm really comfortable for you to address just me as Claire or Matt as Matt. Well, actually, we've got 3 Matts, so good luck with that. Any of the Matts from there. So first name is really fine for the communication with us. But then if you can still sort of structure any of that email, as you would in a professional type workplace, while we're getting to know you, it may be helpful for you just to remind us of who you are in email and some of those sorts of things if you're contacting us. And a simple thing you could do for that would be just to set up like a little email signature where you just might put that you're a first year MPT student or something like that. So that way it's easy for you when you want to contact us and those sorts of things. So I know it is a load and there's lots of announcements and it can be quite hard to filter through all that information. But we would still encourage you to probably check your email daily, but we also think it's important to have boundaries. So, as staff, we will try to contain our work to working hours, not on weekends. Sometimes we will send a sneaky email after hours, but there's no obligation for you to kind of respond in that after hours. Our expectation is that that's happening in that uni time. But of course, if that's when you're, when it's convenient for you to get to it, that's fine. But we do recognise that work-life balance for our staff and you is actually equally important for that. But hence why sort of having that email checking daily is helpful, because there's not often urgent things that come through, but occasionally there'll be that kind of reminder of just remember we're turning up to this prac room tomorrow, or remember to bring your towels or something like that as well. All right. So when you want to contact us, if we really do encourage you to be brave, and if you've got content type questions, if there's discussion boards or things on your topic pages, that you post those questions there, because chances are if you've got that question, somebody else does, and that way it can be answered collectively, or if we see that coming up, a staff member can then address it and follow it up in class. So I know in cardio we would, previous years we've had this thing called the muddiest points, meaning the muddiest, the dirtiest, the hardest things that you don't quite understand, it's just not clear to you. And we would get people to submit a muddy point before the prac each week, and then we can either pull together some written information or address it in class to make sure that that's getting looked at from there. But of course you can email us, and that's probably particularly around things that if you don't feel comfortable, it's not appropriate, or it's not that content related question, or it's to sort of related to something sort of personal around how your study's going. You certainly can request a meeting time with us if you think it's going to sort of be a more lengthy conversation. But generally, most of our staff will keep a fairly open door policy, which means if our door's open and we don't look like we're sitting on a headset on a computer, feel free to knock and drop in, and we'll either say, yes, I can chat now, or actually I'm just about to need to jump onto a meeting. Is there another time? And we can sort that out from there. So do feel free to connect with us. The only other reason, but usually when staff have got their office doors closed, it's either because they're in a meeting or they're recording some sort of content, things like that as well. Or sometimes the prac rooms do get a bit noisy, and the OT staff, because it's mostly it is our prac room, the prac rooms get a bit noisy, and it just needs some quiet to be able to get our work done. But yeah, so hopefully feel comfortable approaching us, and that's probably how that would work best. All right, in terms of the MPT itself, a few years ago we worked to really develop what we've called our Flinders Physio Curriculum Framework. So I mentioned before that any degree across Australia has to meet the same accreditation and physio practice thresholds, but we're also like, well, what's our physio brand? What do we think is important to us? And why, if a student comes to study at Flinders, what are the values and the skills that we really want to emphasise are important to us? So this is what we came up with as far as our staff goes, and working with our students as well. So we certainly think that, everything we do in this world is supported by technology. It permeates everything in terms of how we teach, in terms of supports how healthcare is delivered. But really the things of being partners, so partners with your patient, partners with communities, partners with different organisations is really important to us at Flinders. And so is ideas of leadership. And I know you might be thinking, well, how am I a leader? A leader is a leader isn't a role or a position, it's the personal attributes that you have. It's how you behave in the small interactions every day, whether that's with your patient, whether that's with a peer, as you go through, whether that's working with a physio assistant in your developing role as a physio. It's all these sorts of things. And so we think that having those attributes is really important. And of course that can lead to great opportunities for career progression into leadership roles. But you can achieve, and you can work on that right now. We also have a range of words up there that you can see, and some of them, they're the things that you'd expect, from physio. But some of the really exciting things are like when it comes to behaviour change. I mean, you can have the greatest hands-on skills in the world, but if your patient doesn't like you or they're not going to do it, then you've lost that battle. So that relationship aspect with your patients is really important. And we just won an award within our college for some of the behaviour change curriculum that Tam and our staff have developed up to this Positive Shifts program that we're getting our final year, that comes in your final year of your program. So we're really excited about how we're getting our research, informing our teaching and practice for clinical skills. Working together in a really interprofessional way is really important to us. we still very much recognise the hands-on nature of physio, and at Flinders we know that all the information about pain science and education is really important, but actually so are your hands-on therapeutic skills, which I know that the musculoskeletal team particularly really focus on good assessment skills, because if you can assess a patient, you may not be able to kind of necessarily know what's completely going on or put together a treatment plan, but like that will come. But if you've got good assessment, like, you know, really honed in, accurate, you know, diagnostic skills, particularly in MUSC, you know, you can pick up the other bit. So that's a real focus of us as well, is those hands-on good clinical assessment skills from there. Yeah, and so you can see that from there. And that's reflected in, you know, the course aims, which are on the website, the principles that we have as well, and how and why we work on all those sorts of things. Probably the different words that come in there about being reflective and responsive critical thinkers and effective communicators. And that probably comes down to, you know, when our employers tell us, like, what do they want when we're employing somebody, we're like, do you care about GPA? They flat out basically tell us no. So I know that's going to feel like a dagger to lots of your hearts, because you're only here because you've been highly successful. But they actually want people who are going to be a good fit for their organisation. Essentially, once you're at the point of graduating, they go, yes, you've got the skills. The uni signed you off, you know, they've signed everybody off. Like, it's sort of like, what's your, you know, how are you as a person a good fit for the organisation? And they want to see that you'll be able to work in a team and those sorts of things. Some of the best feedback we get about our Flinders graduates is how, like, you know, as a master's program, you are that more level mature, and that's not meant to sound like a condescending word, but there is that previous life experience, all the skills that you already have, you know, just get taken to a next level with this study, which is fantastic. You've already got excellent skills. You're going to refine them into a different scope of practice and grow over the next 2 years. You're going to go in, and what they really love is your ability to integrate and work with the team and to solve problems. And that's basically what they want. They know that you're not going to know everything, but if you can adjust your radar to kind of not be like overconfident, but you're not harsh on yourself either. You know, you're really just solid and clear, and you can be like, look, I don't know this, but this is how I can find out, and if I did this, would this work, and, you know, and what do you reckon? So you can be really proactive, and you can kind of solve problems and figure things out. That's probably the biggest skill set that they really want, because health systems are always changing. It's even hard for staff to get across, like, who you're meant to be referring to and whatnot. So if you've got the problem-solving skills, you'll be able to tackle that ever-changing environment that you're going into. So lots of positives. So yes, we are a fully accredited program. We have our accreditation up next year, but that's just part of what happens. We're just coming to the end of having been fully accredited for the maximum time that they're allowed to accredit anyone for. So I know you'll hear us talking about it, but it's nothing that we're concerned about, because we got full accreditation 7 years ago, and that's as long as, actually only meant to get it for 6, but we got it for 7. So, you know, it's just a process that we're going to have to go through. So what happens is, in terms of that, at the moment, you, so now that you're in this master's part, you know, we do let ARPRA know your name. So you have what's called a student registration. You don't need to do anything, but at the same time, it kind of, there's nothing that you have to do about it, but there's nothing you can do with it either, all right? It doesn't give you any particular permissions to work or do anything. It just means that ARPRA knows that you're a future potential person that's, you know, that when you complete that you'll get, you know, that will sign you off to be registered. So there is information on the flow page, and I know that this isn't for you now, but towards the end of the degree is when people will ask, how do I start to get my ARPRA registration? But just for that overview now, essentially, once your final grades are signed off by the university sends your name and details to ARPRA to say, yep, you've met the degree requirements, and then they go, yep, your uni says you've met them, and then the other parts are up to you. So keeping in mind that there is something like, I feel like it's like 30,000 or plus students that will be getting registered with ARPRA in December every year across, you think that's every nursing student, that's every physio, that's every psychologist, that's every OT, that's every There's like 14 professions, and lots of them will finish at the end of the year. But usually what you would do is about 2 or 3 months prior to graduation, like when you know that date's coming, you can fill in your parts of the registration form. You can pay your registration fee. It's a couple of $100 that we all then pay every year to stay registered. So you can do all the back-end admin if you like, and that way at least AHPRA can start kind of checking off all of that, so that way when they get the uni results, they just go, oh, yep, you're fine, here's your registration. As you can appreciate, there's lots of processes of information that has to be confirmed and go through different organisations. This year it happened faster than I've ever seen it happen, but I know everyone's always asking, when can I start work? And we used to say, well, usually we always make sure they're sent off before end of the year in December, if you're finishing your degree on a normal timeline. And we'd go, yep, sometime in January, but they were coming back within like a couple of weeks. And I know that can be anxious because often you've already got a job and an employer's waiting, but the employers are pretty understanding about that. They know if they're getting a new grad, like that stuff, that it might take a extra week or two. Or you might want a nice holiday before you start your next job. I don't know, you probably just want to start working. But yeah, it is a bit finicky, but at least you've got a bit of an overview about what that means now. For when you're more interested later on down the track. Oh, sorry, ma'am. I didn't correct that slide font. All right, some of the things we're really proud of at Flinders and we think are great here is we have our on-site Health to Go clinic. That's on your bingo tour list later. So that is for the public to come in and have a range of health services. It started off as an optometry clinic, which is why when you walk in you see mostly glasses on the wall and you're like, where are the physios? But we are there. The speech pathologies in the clinic, there's exercise physiology, occupational therapy and all that as well. So that's where we run most of our musculoskeletal placements throughout, throughout the year. So yeah, have a look at that. And our staff, and some industry physios supervising that clinic as well. So again, if you can't find our staff for a day, if it's one of the Matts or Catherine or Tori, it's probably because they're with our final years supervising a placement down there. We also think interprofessional practice is really important. If you've ever been to a healthcare professional and you've got the runaround of, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this, you're going to have to go and see that person, you know how clunky it is from yourself or a family member to sometimes get the healthcare you need. Part of where that system falls down is sometimes because health professionals don't have a good understanding of what other professionals do, or they don't feel comfortable being able to provide some of that broader health advice to kind of, make things as easy as possible from the patient journey. We know that interprofessional communication, whether you're in a private practice or in a hospital, is really key to being able to actually get good outcomes for the patient. So again, it's this story of your clinical skills are really important, but actually if it's not matched by good communication, good care coordination, all the handover of information and everything else behind it, it can be a really rubbish experience, can't it? And for a patient that has to tell their story again and again, or they get people asking the same questions, it's not always a very comfortable experience really, or good use of anyone's time. So interprofessional practices we see as very, very important, hence why you've got an entire topic this semester called IPP. It starts now and then we thread it through the rest of your degree, and that includes having some very specifically designed interprofessional placements. So you will get to do your specific physio skills in there, but some of your placements do have a slightly different focus on them. So we're really excited that we have got interprofessional placements and placements that are occurring in really sort of new and emerging areas of physio as well. So that gives you great opportunity to perhaps have a placement experience that may feel less defined, but at the end of the day, your job is to kind of work in that leadership role and work with the speech students and the OT students to come up with a service to contribute to the service design and the service delivery and the evaluations. So there's different ways that we achieve that in your degree. Rural and remote health is also really important to us. We know that there are huge inequities in this very large country, which are related to, to geography, but also other factors as well. We know that those rural experiences are actually really transformative for you as well. in terms of opening your eyes to a range of things. And yeah, just having really different experiences and often really challenging you to bring practice areas together so you can work as holistically as possible. So we do have a whole range of placements across South Australia, but Flinders is a massive university. We also have campuses in the Northern Territory as well. The availability of those placements do change year to year, but Kelly will have more information about that. But we're really excited, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years. We've had placements in Nhulunbuy, which is the land of the Yolngu people, in East Arnhem Land, which is where, you know, the Prime Minister announced, you know, the Voice referendum, and while that wasn't successful, you know, it's a really wonderful, wonderful part of the world. And we're so lucky to have actually a physio who happens to work there and support our placement. So long may Chris stay there so that we can have physio placements up there. But yeah, there's a whole range of connections. I'll give you some information this afternoon about a peer mentoring program. So again, that speaks to the social elements of this degree that we want to facilitate. It'll be in my afternoon session this afternoon, but I'll also make sure I post information online. So it's voluntary. We've had about 40 final years sign up and say, yes, buddy me with one of you, and then we'll get your nominations and match you up so you get to connect with a final year student. And we'll just look at the interest in numbers as to how we perhaps either pair up individuals or pairs or small groups. So you've got somebody in final year that you know. And then, yeah, more information about that this afternoon. It's an informal thing, but you can have that peer mentoring from there. You'll hear from some of our other professional connections later in the afternoon. As a university, like in South Australia, like we're the only university that we've got something like 9 joint appointments in our college where we've got staff employed doing research in different organisations. Like, it's just unheard of, like having that level of industry connection, that placements, that research, that teaching stem from. Our model of placements of having supervisors embedded in sites but connected to us is really best practice. And so I think what we do best here is connect with industry to get a really wide variety of placements. We've made really good headway in getting connections with private practice for the first time to get placements in private practice in South Australia. The other unis don't have that. So we're really excited that we've been able, and that comes from good relationship skills, and that comes from working with them and our partners saying that we like to do business with you because you'll pick up the end of the phone. We're there to support the students and the supervisors and really make stuff work. So we're really excited about the placements that we have and opportunities. Most of our staff are clinical specialist teaching staff, so most of those things on the screen, like, you know, lots of the staff are still mostly working clinically as well. Of course, we find that the more you come to the uni, the more you just can't juggle everything in life. But even if our staff are doing casual jobs on weekends, lots of them are still working clinically in hospitals. And that's why most of us, I think except for Matt now, are part-time. So, yeah, because pretty well everyone else is juggling other clinical work and other things from being here. So that does mean that you've got staff that are still practicing, they're still connected, they're still getting that perspective to bring into the teaching, and they can bring the practice from the teaching out to the clinical world as well. But we also have great research capabilities and leaderships as well. So a few of our staff are in teaching and research positions. So I'm one of them. So when I'm not course coordinating, I do have a research studies and program that I run. So my main interest area is in physical activity for older adults, anything to do with acute care, cardiorespiratory and hospital work. So the projects I'm working on at the moment are trying to develop some guidelines for older adults when they're in hospital about how to be more active, and also doing some intervention development work as well. So basically, a physical activity and sedentary behaviour intervention for older adults and how they go from hospital to home to try and help keep them active and support their rehab recovery over that time. So that's me. But Tam, who does neuro, is also one of the research staff and does a lot of around stroke rehabilitation and all things neuro. She does all the behaviour change research and very consumer-focused, client-focused research. And Belinda Lang as well, again in neuro, is very great on assistive tech. I don't even know what she does, just really good tech stuff and all sorts of things. And then we do have one other physio who you may see her name on the office door, Lucy Lewis. She was our past academic lead course coordinator, but now she moved up to the hill to some very important position overseeing research students across the whole university. But she still appears sometimes, which we really, really appreciate because she's a fantastic teacher, again, from the cardio sphere originally. So you may see her around a bit, but if you see her name pop up, she's adds to that sort of research-informed parts of our practice. All right, so other cool things. Part of your experience here, I know that this particular room isn't so great in terms of facilities. You'd have to love mid-century architecture, which is coming back into vogue, or feel like you're sitting in some very American film, like channel it in your cool, uncomfortable lecture seats. But in terms of our facilities, it's about what we have, but it's actually a lot of it is about how we teach. And it's that interpersonal element as well. So our facilities are good. Some of them, in all fairness, are better than others, but they're actually completely fine. We've got everything in terms of the tech that we need to be able to do that. And it's actually about the clinical skills and how that happen. We think is what we really value. But you can see there's lots of fun to be had with when we do simulation with our students, and that's in a range of sort of really low fidelity, so less tech-heavy versions, all the way up to using the simulation hospital-type facilities as well. A range of different sort of tech and things like that. We certainly have all the equipment available to give you experience with that as relevant to your teaching. And here's some examples of the different placements. So that photo on the left is from a couple of years ago, and that was our first group of students, Arten and Phoebe in the middle, who worked with Brain Injury SA to develop a whole new student clinic where it's speech, OTs and physios. And I saw it popped up on my Facebook the other day that Brain Injury SA were promoting for clients to come. So that service is for clients with brain injury who have perhaps run out of NDIS funding, or they're unable to pay, or they need some extra therapy that they can't access through other things. They can come in for free to the student clinic, and the students will assess. They'll come up with an interprofessional, management plan, and they'll do that. And the students fairly well run that, very, very independently. So that's a fantastic placement experience, great service to the community. As well, which really shows the value of what you can do. And then on the right is up in Nhulunbuy and East Arnhem Land, where they were running some of the cardiac rehabilitation programs up there and sort of having these sort of, yarning sort of education sessions about health. But it's really cool because it's two-way learning. So when they go to do their physical activity, they're going to do things like they're doing bush medicine, they're going out spearfishing, they're going out mud muscling and stuff like that to be able to get physically active in actually interesting and meaningful ways of being active when they were running that cardiac rehab program. So that's really cool. Alrighty, bit of boring stuff now, but hopefully the important stuff of what you'll study, and you've had a look at our MPT study plan. Now I've double checked and I'm fairly sure that everyone has at least managed to get enrolled in your semester one subjects, which I actually recognise is not always that easy. The enrolment system can be quite clunky, so I think you should give yourselves a pat on the back that you actually got enrolled. Yay! And then you can deal with your semester two ones later. If you can enrol in them now that you know how to do it, you might as well set your whole year up. But you can head through that there. So you'll meet Matt, Alex and Jill this afternoon, and then we have the other staff that are involved in there. Your first placement sits as a 1 weeker in this topic here, and then you have your first full placement at the end of this year. And then next year, you start off with a professional practice and understanding health systems topic, which I coordinate. Your neuro content, and it's placement, a couple of placements again in second semester, and some of these other topics there. All right, I'm fairly sure you're all enrolled. So in terms of the topic calendar, we don't use conventional semester dates, and that's for several reasons. One is because on the very right, pink shaded there, is that there's a national calendar of placement dates. So I think everywhere across Australia now. It used to be just the eastern states and us, and Perth did their own thing because they were so far away. But particularly for the eastern states and here in South Australia, where you've got lots of universities doing placements, it's not great if you're a business or a hospital trying to be like, oh, well, the Flinders students want to come from this date to this date and these other students want to come from this date and that date. So we have these blocked 5-week placements that the universities all work to, so that helps us to be everyone to be able to get the clinical placement experiences. So of course that impacts how we structure the rest of our curriculum. So you're starting as normal this week, but you know, this calendar which I've got on the flow on the MPT flow page and matches up with your timetable is condensed also because there's a lot to squeeze in a 2-year master's program and what we need to meet. So we have changed what happens within these weeks over the years in response to student feedback. So every year you get to benefit from what the students said the year before, and I know you won't know any differently, but what we've done this year is stretch out and teach your PMF topic and your MSK topic alongside each other for the whole semester, you know, for the first part of our semester. And in the second half of the year, you'll do your cardio and your muscular alongside each other. What we'd done in a few of the years prior is do that in intensive. So you would have just done the PMF in the first 6 weeks and then your MUSC2. But we had feedback from staff and students and a range of things, particularly when we've had challenges for some of our international students to get onshore, or if you're sick for a week, basically you're just missing so much content. So in a combination of student feedback in terms of how, you know, the pacing of information, yes, it means that now you're back to almost like a normal uni year where you're doing multiple topics alongside of each other. But Alex and Matt have worked really hard to get as best alignment between the topics they can together. So there'll hopefully be lots of connections there for you. So it's all being taught in the same amount of time, but just to show you that we will want your feedback and hear how it goes. And we will go through the headache of re-timetabling if it's important to you and important to our staff to try and improve that teaching and learning experience. But we do still have some more intensive type topics, particularly when you come into final year. And that's appropriate because you kind of know what you're in for then. So being able to like chunk up time, it very much suits the master's style level of learning. It does mean you've got 26 weeks of placement over your degree. As you'll see, the timetable is generally Monday to Friday, but every time they throw in a public holiday or something else, you know, it does change a bit week to week. But what we have done is in setting up the timetable, we've still tried to chunk your topics on particular days this year. So Monday's basically your IPP day. We've kind of got mostly Tuesday, Wednesdays as PMF, I think, isn't it? And then Thursday, Friday as your MUSC days. So hopefully your week will still follow a similar rhythm through the topics. But again, with our 17 plus staff that are all part-time, we also have to make sure that the topics are on the days that they actually work to teach it. So yeah, just being honest about some of the logistics we've worked through, but we've very much had you in mind in trying to structure things like that. The other thing you'll see in the timetable is that we have intentionally avoided having lots of classes back to back. So I know that there will be times in the week where you have, you know, a 2-hour break between sessions. And that's for various reasons, because anyone that's done like long 4-hour prac classes, how much do you take in at the end? Like 0, not very much. You know, the energy in the room and the ability to learn cognitively is certainly probably at a minimum by then. So part of that's intentionally building break time so that when you're at class for a reason, it maximises your learning, and that's what we're there to help you do. It also means that, again, we can work in the background with our staff, and you know, it may not always work out like this, but it allows us to have more consistency in the staff teaching particular content because they can reteach it, so that we do all that stuff to ensure consistency as best as possible between prac classes. We have teaching plans, we do all that stuff to make sure whatever class you're in, you know, you're all getting a consistent and a great experience, but all that stuff just helps us, that extra layer, to be able to make sure there's actually breaks in the day and things. So I know that may feel annoying, but it is intentional, and you'll see that there's a substantial enough volume of online work to be looking at and self-practice that you can do to be able to use your time efficiently, because I know you've got other demands in your week that you'll need to get to as well. We are in the process of we've just managed to secure a couple of extra rooms that we can use for physio. They're still getting some PowerPoints put in to be able to use, but again, we're hoping to sort of make sure that we do have at least a few other free practice spaces that, again, it won't hold everyone in there, but that there is at least some space so that between having a break between classes, you could actually get in and do some practice for the clinical skills while the other classes come into the main lab. So that's exciting and new for us this year, that we've been able to secure some extra spaces. All right, in terms of some other key dates and things, there's this thing called the handbook, which has got all the main kind of dates that the university works by. You will see that we do just have a 1 week break on that calendar, kind of our mid-semester. And then when it comes to your placement, Kelly will give you more information. There's 3 weeks of that first placement, but you get allocated just one of those 3 weeks. So Kelly will go through what the process is for that. I know you'll be keen to sort of plan what you can do in terms of break weeks, but you'll either be in the first, second or third week, which means that you will still get 2 break weeks. It's just when and how that happens, we need to finalise and make sure we've got all the placement offers we need from our partners to be able to pair you up with them. Then at the end of the year, we all finish at the same time together. Just flicking back here, this is your first year here. So what happens here in green is you're all doing the same stuff. You'll all be doing your cardio, MUSC 2, and some of physio clinical practice topic things here. And in this yellow blocks here, you'll kind of be divided in half. Half of you will do your 5-week placement here. The other half will do your 5-week placement here. But when you're not on placement, you're still doing some follow-up teaching from those other topics. So it means that you do all still finish on the exact same Friday of the year. It's just that for that last 10 weeks, your wrap-up journey looks a little bit different. That's also the same Friday that the final years finish as well. So again, you can see that there are placements that are happening for final years at the same time as well. And so we do have different students out at different placements at different times through there, but you all wrap up at the same time. You can also see that at the start of the year, this is this year, that the final years came back the week of the 20th of January, so they come back 1 week before either placements or their neurotopic teaching starts. Really, we don't know exactly what that will be until the timetable officially gets released, which is usually around October, November, the year before, but I can't imagine there'll be any differences for that, which means that when you're thinking about the end of the year, I think I've worked out it's about the 19th of January would be the week that we'd be having you, planning to come back from there. If you do have any questions about that as it comes through closer to the year, particularly if you're needing to sort of plan, travel, work, things like that, check in with me. But that's the structure that we're expecting. We just have to get formal confirmation from the uni on the calendar and weeks. Now, right at the end of the degree, again, this isn't the most important stuff first, but this is where it fits well, is to, so there are a couple of, awards and prizes that get given out at the end of your degree. There's some information on the website there. So I think there's an overall academic excellence prize, which I'm fairly sure that's the, I should have checked this, I'm fairly sure that's the highest, GPA from your MPT studies. So yes, while your GPA has nothing to do with getting a job, you may, we encourage you to still to aim high, and that's there. There is a one run through the APA, and I'm fairly sure that one relates to grades that you get for the final year clinical placement, so that particularly reflects that placement type skill development. We have a leadership and service award in physiotherapy that we would call for nominations for, so that's people that have either shown leadership within the program, or again, there's a whole range of, either volunteer or extracurricular roles and things that we know people have impact in their communities towards the profession. And SASMA, who I'm expecting to come in and talk shortly. We also have a sports prize, and again, I can't quite remember that, but I think it's basically if you ace your Musk topics and you, again, self-nominate for some other sort of, if you're doing other sport contribution things as well. There's information on the website there as well. And yeah, and sometimes we've got new prizes coming on board as well. All right, so in terms of services and supports, there's lots of stuff that we have at the uni to help you to be successful. So there are student success and wellbeing advisors. Well, there's an advisor here at Sturt. And really, this person, Mel, is somebody, she's not an academic, but she's separate to our academic team. So if there's stuff that you want to get advice on, you can independently refer yourself to go and make an appointment with her, or sometimes if you've been chatting with me or a member of staff, we go, hey, maybe just go chat with Mel because she knows all the rest of the services really well, and she'll be really good at trying to work out what you need or what's a priority right now and stuff like that as well. Because stuff can get tough from there. The university has a whole range of wellbeing supports. Some of those are things you can access yourself, like online blogs and resources to be able to sort of help you thrive academically and personally as well. And that's broader than, but it also includes links to the university's health counselling and disability services. So these are free for you to access as a student. The GPs are probably really good if you're trying to, and I know that all GPs are hard getting to see, but if you're trying to get your placement, immunisations done, at least they're familiar with the right forms and what you need to do. They're up on main Bedford Park campus, so maybe easier to get to. And then there's also, the free and confidential counselling services there as well. And they have the disability support advisors. So if anybody does have an access plan or has things that you think are making it difficult to study, and you think that there's, reasonable changes or modifications that can support your study journey, then that's how you would go about, liaising and seeing if that's an option for you to then be able to work with your topic coordinators in your study going forward. There's also a range of other, student sort of wellbeing and activities and things around. So there's Oasis as well. And this is where I kind of go, you all feel very overwhelmed and go, my goodness, who would I go to for what? But you can see that there's a whole range of sort of activities related to sort of faith-based spiritual wellbeing and a range of other services as well that sit, I guess, a bit separately to perhaps health and counselling type services if you're looking to connect with people from there. As an international student, especially welcome to you. You probably know ISS already because they've helped support you in terms of coming to Flinders in the first place. But they're still around and they're going to be trying to spend an extra day on campus down here at Sturt as well, which is the first year that we've got a regular day for that. So that's super exciting in terms of, while the walk up the hill's lovely, like having that little bit of convenience one day a week, I hope will be a really nice way that you can also access, and ask questions of them if needs be as well. And they do have a couple of events they wanted me to promote to you. I know you've probably got a busy week, but should you want to fill your academic and social calendar, ISS are having a welcome event on Friday, and they also have got a placement information session tomorrow. I think that's a fairly general placement information session for international students. I don't know that it's specific to our college, but I think that anything that's sort of helpful in understanding like placements and either helping navigate some of the compliance stuff, could be of interest and helpful to you, because I know that there's often a few unique processes that you need to navigate, particularly around some of the documentation. But certainly Kelly will give information about compliance for placements, and we do have an admin person right here in the college who we can link you with to help with that as well. So I'm sure that's helpful, but we've got multiple ways we can support you with that. The next is Yungarinthi, which is the team that support our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. And again, they've got main presence up on main campus, but they're also just about to open a room down here at Sturt called the Culture Cup Room, which is a room where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students and staffs can sort of meet, debrief, and so that's really exciting that we've actually got a specific space for that here on Sturt campus, and conveniently the room is right across the corridor from where our new physio practice rooms are, so that's really convenient for us. Of course, on campus you need to know a few things about if stuff goes wrong, what happens. Our security team are available 24 hours a day. There is a number on the back, on student ID cards, I believe, if you need to call them. And that could be for a whole range of things. They're also the team that I would call if we needed first aid on campus and stuff like that as well. They're really lovely and friendly, but just be aware that there are those services. And from time to time, depending on what campus and where you're learning, if you're here late, they also have like a service that may escort you to your car, particularly if it's after hours and stuff. So they do a lot more than you think they might do. So you can always look up that information if that's the sort of thing you need. Of course, we expect a safe workplace, from safety in its broader sense for all our students and staff. That includes, a place that's, emotionally and psychologically safe, physically safe as well, and we still have the highest expectations of everybody in terms of that respect of people's bodies on campus. And it's things about, we don't accept, harassment, anything that is sort of, sexual abuse or sexual harassment and things like that. It's a zero, tolerance here for that at Flinders. And we expect everyone to be able to uphold that, but also to have a shared community responsibility with how we make this a safe campus and space. So it's important to know where you can go if there are something that arises for you, or if you witness something else being arised. There is confidential ways that you can raise things that don't need to identify you, but there is information on that, particularly if you've got a safety or wellbeing concern of that nature. That we're here to make a safe space for everybody, and that you can raise that. Scholarships, the uni has info on them because and this isn't necessarily like academic scholarships. This is the main site in case you're eligible for any other sorts of funding, living assistance, placement support and stuff like that as well. So that all gets managed through that team there. I've run a little bit out of time, but I have got time later. But what I might do is introduce Danielle, and then I'll pick up my slides after this. Why don't you just have at least 5 sit-to-stands for me, maybe 10, while I get Danielle's slides set up. Or a drink of water or something.
Wasn't I at the right time? Right, perfect. It's more than what you think always is.
This mic, or do you want to? This one's easier.
No.
All right, I'm going to keep us moving and promise that morning tea is coming soon. We have our SASMA CEO here, Danielle Grant-Cross, and she's going to give you some information. Well, tell us all things SASMA.
Thank you.
And what you can get involved with.
Excellent. Are you going to do it? Oh, no, I can do it. That's all right. Yeah. I'll do it anyway. Hey everyone, and welcome. It's an exciting period in your life, starting this new university degree here at Flinders, which is awesome. So my name is Danielle, and I'm the CEO of the South Australian Sports Medicine Association. You're thinking, so, why does that involve me? It does involve you because we have a whole lot of allied health members, so physios, orthopaedic surgeons, sports doctors, physicians, OTs, podiatrists, psychologists, all those type of people are members of ours. So as a student, you can be a member and you get invited to other sort of PD events, lots of professional development. We basically what our role is we support a safe sport and active environment. So we're a not-for-profit. We've been going for about 64 years, so we're South Australian based, and we get our funding from our members and from events that we run, but also from the Office of Recreation, Sport and Racing. So the government, the state government, give us funding to do things like concussion and also sport safety tick and all those types of things that makes sport safe on the ground. Who here is active now in sport? Can you just raise your hands? Okay. And I know I shouldn't just say sport. Who's active in some other way that is not a sport? Okay. So you all are involved in sport, and I think it's great you're doing this degree. I think it's a super degree. Obviously, it's hard to get into, but it's a really important one to keep people active. What we do is that I sort of spoken about what we do. Other things that we do manage is things like the Tour Down Under. So if you're a member of SASMA, you get the opportunity to be part of the Tour Down Under, and that's part of the medical team. So we have doctors, physios, trainers, sports trainers. Who here knows what a sports trainer is? Okay, because I saw you first. Do you want to tell me what a trainer is?
Well, I'm from Canada, but I actually am an athletic therapist myself in Canada. So, yeah, we deal with like orthopedic injuries, any kind of like medical, first responder as well.
So on the sideline more, you're meaning?
Usually,
yeah. So
I don't know what it is here, but
no, it's perfect. Anyway, you get a hat because you put your hand up. You get a SASMA hat. It's very bright, so we won't miss you in class, right? So if you want to wear it. So a sports trainer, what is a sports trainer? We've got a level 1 and level 2 sports trainer. It's what they do. They're on the sideline. So maybe in Canada it's a bit more advanced and it's more than what a sports trainer is. So it's an accreditation. You do it over 1 day for a level 1 and 2 days for a level 2. To do the level 1, you've got to do 50 hours of sideline support on the side with a sport, with a school, with a whatever, with an event. So we deliver those courses, and why I think it is super, and I might jump around a bit, why it is super for, thank you. Don't know if it's up here, I've got to see where it is. I'll go back to it. So why it's super is that as an allied health person, you go and do placement, right? So you go, after you get into this, and I know you're all new and you'll get to know each other and have good friendship in here, but when you go on a placement, you go to a new area and might be with a sport or a hospital or whatever it might be, but if you are with a club or a sport, often they're really keen and say, hey, Joe or James, you're really super, we'd love you to be our trainer, can you be our trainer? And you're like, hey, that sounds good, I'll learn more of, on the ground hand stuff, how to tape, all those types of things. But often you're not accredited, so you sit in this insurance limbo where you're not a physio yet and you're not a trainer yet. So we run a allied health sports trainer course twice a year. We've got one coming up in April. I'll flick to that slide in a minute. It's totally up to you if you would like to do it. We offer a really good rate at doing it, and we're doing it at the new SASI. So who's heard of the South Australian Sports Institute at Mile End? Yeah? Some people have? Yeah, so our office is within there. Literally, we've got a slither of an office, but we're in that building. And not that I should say about another university, but the other university is above us in that area, and we're actually going to hold the Allied Health event there. So you'll get to have a tour of SASI, of the Sports Institute. So for people that are new to this state, potentially, it's a new, I don't know how many millions, it's a new elite sport pathway for athletes in this state, and it's got, awesome rehab, gym, amazing court, all the rest of it. So it's really super. So I would encourage you, if you go in the MSK sport pathway, and you probably don't know what you want to do yet, but if you do, that certainly is an option for you. So I might go back to the other slide. So these are the types of things that we do. So you can see the tour over there. So that was us on the tour, and we hold events all around the state. We've been from, we've got a staff member going to Roxby Downs this weekend. We're at Mount Gambier the other weekend. We go all over the state delivering education to community and to clubs, but as well as professional members. So we've got doctors often, and allied health people in the regions don't often have enough support. So we go out and help provide some education there. So that's sort of what we do, and we run professional education. We've actually, which I should go, can we flick to another slide? I've got to feed where it is. Okay, so this is what we are. SASMA is a peak body in this state. We work with government, sport, universities, a whole sector. There are independent clinics, and that's the end result. We want a safe sport and active environment and people to be involved. We might flick to the next one. Okay, so we have got a careers evening where we're bringing together a lot of our members are involved with the Adelaide Crows or Port Adelaide or the Olympic pathways or the Paralympic pathways. We're bringing all of our members together for a sort of a careers night for everyone in medical allied health. So you are interested in going to that, you certainly can. I thought someone had a question, but they didn't. And so it's on again at the new Sassy complex at Mile End, sort of just out of the city. So if you want to know a bit more about the area you're going into and the pathway of how people went to elite sport, if that's what you want to do, or even into just sport, or how they went to the Olympics or whatever, that'll be a great evening to come to. Might flip to the next one. Hopefully that's got the... Oh, yeah, here we are. So this is University Level 1 Sports Trainer course. So I think a lot of your students that have come through the program, a lot of your master's students that have come through here have come to this course, and I think they find it really valuable. But if you're interested, that is something that is open to you. So it includes, if you do want to do it, it includes your annual membership. And then with that annual membership, you get invited to 5 other sports medicine type events throughout the year if you're interested. Okay, and not every topic will be interesting. Some it's women's health. Sometimes we're doing one on running and hip and injuries in the middle of the year in the lead up to the City to Bay. So we often theme our events with what's going on in Adelaide. So the Women's World Cup, we did a women's one. For, I can't even remember, for the gather round, we do something on football, right? So we sort of try and do that. And they're really good, and it's actually excellent for networking. So if you're new and you want to connect with other people or get on a placement or connect with someone, it's usually pretty good. Okay, so that just tells you what a member is, which I think I sort of have spoken around. Actually, one thing I didn't say, which I'm glad that's on the slide, my staff coordinated for me, you actually can be paid also to present on behalf of SASMA. So if you're a trainer or a physio or whatever you might be, we run a whole lot of courses. We run around 100 events a year. We just had our big workshop on the weekend, so we held a state conference, and that was 150 people. There was around 75 professional members, so all the allied health people and doctors, and then the other 70 were trainers. And we flew in Dr. David Hughes from the AIS. He's the Chief Medical Officer, and he came and spoke about all the past Olympics and about injuries and illness and mental health and all those things that athletes face. But we also heard a whole lot of people. We took a pathway of a 12-year-old to a 20-year-old. When they were 12, what injuries they had. When they were 16, what injuries they had. When they were 20 at Brisbane 32, the Brisbane Olympics, what was their pathway and who were the important people along that journey, whether it's a teacher, a trainer, a coach, a physio, their local GP, parent, whoever it might be. So it's a really awesome event. So that was really super. Might flick to the next one. It might be just about it. I've gone pretty quick. I do tend to speak pretty fast. Do these a little bit. So SASMA really is a bit of an advocate, I suppose. So you, when you become physiotherapists, will be part of the APA, the Australian Physiotherapy Association. And SASMA, if you're interested in sports medicine, working with teams or going that MSK pathway, that's a nice fit if you're wanting to do that. I think a student memberships is around $50, I think, something, don't quote me, it's on our website, something like that. But if you do the level 1 course, it's all part of it. And I'd really encourage you, if you want to go down that pathway and get hands-on experience, the level 1 course is really, really super. Who has some questions? I have to start pinpointing people if no one asks me a question, so it's much safer. Got one more hat to give away. All right, yeah. Yes, you do. So correct. So you need to do, it's usually a season, it's usually a year. So it's sort of 50 hours of working with a team or a club or a few events to be able to become the level 2. So level 1, we do have a level 0 course, which is sideline help and concussion and basic taping, level 0. I don't think you would need to do that if you're doing this course. I think you could do the level 1. And then you do your level 1 course. It's over a day. There's 6 hours of online learning. I think it's actually probably for you, it'll be quicker because you know this space or you'll get to know your own, the MSK space. So you do online learning. You come for a day. We do things like how to stretcher someone off. So how do you appropriately stretcher? You've seen all those blooper videos where people get dropped and all the rest of it. So we try and how to not do that, how to do it appropriately. You do things like wound management. You do things like taping. You do things like concussion. How to manage concussion, what are the latest protocols? So it's a really practical, hands-on, sort of generalist, thing. But the level 1, I would encourage that uni 1. We've got one at the beginning and one later in the year. Since you asked the question, how could you, oh no, I was going to throw it. I know, I'll have to say, what was I thinking? We'll hand it back, sorry, thank you. Thanks for asking that question. But I know you're here for, we got another one?
Yeah, just wondering, do you have any other dates that you
Yeah, totally. So we have, if you can't do that one, there are ones, like we've got one this Sunday, we've got one the 6th of April. We do them pretty regularly. So this is our very busy time of year. So busy pre-season. So before a lot of the contact winter sports start, we are very frantic. So we run as many courses. We put around 600 sports trainers through a year. But there's never enough, right? There's never enough trainers. So clubs, you know, these people are amazing. They volunteer a lot or they get an honorarium. You actually can get paid also, maybe down the track. You can get paid as a trainer. So I know some of the Flinders students were at Scotch, Old Collegiate Football Club, and there was a few of them, and they all got paid to do that. So it can also be a part-time job while you're learning. So I would really encourage it, yeah.
Do you offer like first responder type courses as well, and like first aid courses?
Yeah, no, we don't deliver that because we're not a RTO, but we accredit sports trainers, but we're not an RTO. We're actually thinking about it because everyone asks us, can we do it? So to be a trainer, you do need to have your first aid, which, as you maybe do know, that lasts every 3 years. And then you need to have your CPR, which you have to do every year. So I think as part of your course...
We just do CPR for placement. But I guess the thing is that when I hear talk every year, I get really excited because it's around that. It's different professional development, but I guess what Sasma and Danielle's team are offering is a chance to sort of have that sports trainer role and the skills you need to do it, like recognised through a level 1 qualification. Because we get inundated with requests for physio students, and I'm all volunteering, and and you may choose to do things in a volunteer role, but we also get roles which are where there is, people do use it as a part-time job, and I guess the benefit is at least going, you're not therefore just relying on the skills that we've taught you, because we've not taught you specifically with that role in mind, whereas a level 1 gives you that. And through SASMA, it's all the things, you don't want to think about it, but it's stuff related to like insurance, to make sure that, that when you're in a role with the club, they will support you with those negotiations about, what is reasonable to kind of, like, how do I navigate that process with the club in terms of who I'm working with, insurance to make sure that when I'm doing my sideline or my treatment that I'm working within the scope of what I'm allowed to do as a trainer, because it's different to a physio, just to protect and keep yourself safe just as much as the players. That's what I usually do.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really super important. We always talk about keeping in your lane, right? So as a trainer, you keep in your lane. As a physio, it's different. So even if you're a fully fledged physio and you're a sports trainer with a team, your role, and you've been employed or you're under a sports trainer role, you have to keep within the sports trainer role. You don't do a physio role. And we often have a lot of nurses that get stuck in that space, especially in the regions, right? Because all the community knows they're a nurse and knows they can do more, but they need to keep in the sports trainer role. But yeah, and also, I think if a club does approach you, you can actually say to them, actually, can you pay for my insurance? Can you pay for my level 2 course? Can you pay for me to go to concussion? None of these things are overly expensive. I know everything's expensive these days, and as a student, it's probably difficult as well. But you can actually, if they want to invest in you and have you there, they should also look after you as well. So we really encourage it and we advocate that. And we're on the phone to help people navigate those types of things as well. But anyway, I'm going to get off because you've got a full day. Great to meet you all. A couple of awesome hats, red hats that we won't forget. And really best of luck throughout your university journey. I hope we can see you at one of our courses.
Oh, round of applause.
Good luck with your life.
Thank you. Is this slide relevant, or do I need to delete the? That's what we're going to do. So we're going to have. All right, we've just got a bit of a social thing that I'm going to choose Catherine and Alex to lead you into morning tea break. So they're going to run this, and then we'll kick you off for a coffee from 10:30, but come back in here for 11 if you can, please. All right. So this is Catherine. This is Alex.
Hi, everybody. My name's Catherine Shepherd. I'll be getting to know you quite well in the next few weeks. I teach into the IPP course and into the PMF course with Alex. So we have a very busy time coming up, and some of you I will hopefully get to know really well. We invest quite a lot of energy into getting to know you quite quickly. So this little moment is part of that journey. Can I just start by getting a bit of a feel for who's in the room? How many of you in here have come through the BHS? So you've done a 3-year Bachelor of Health Science. Okay, so you guys are starting slightly ahead of everyone else because you already know each other. You know the building, you know where to go, how things work. You've familiar with the flow page and Canvas and all those sorts of things. Can I get a sense of who in the room perhaps has come to this course either through a different qualification at Flinders or a different university here in Australia? So who's sort of, okay, so you've maybe you've come from interstate, maybe you've come from another university, you're new to Flinders, bless you. Who in the room has come from an international course? So who's not only new to Flinders, wow, but new to Australia? So that just explodes my brain every time. It's such a huge commitment.
We have about a third actually, like on our close enough to. Fantastic. Those categories, so even those that aren't here today,
it's exciting. Such. I mean, this is a big moment, a big day for everybody. But for you guys, especially who've moved from overseas, there's such a lot to learn, such a lot that's new. We do a lot to try and help support you guys find your feet as soon as possible, regardless of how you've got here today. The next 2 years is very busy. There is a lot to learn. Even those of you who've come through the Bachelor and gone, oh, it's totally fine, this is really straightforward, it's really busy. These 2 years are going to fly by so fast. They're very intense. There's lots to learn. There's lots of assessment. And it's a pretty intimidating sort of thing to think about. So one of our most important jobs is to, as soon as we can, as quickly as we can, make you feel at home. Make sure you're connected with people. Make sure you're getting to know people, that you're feeling comfortable in the space with us, that you're finding some friends, because the sooner you feel at home, the quicker you will start to fly in our course. So on that note, why don't you meet someone new? So we want to start by just introducing yourself to someone you don't know. So consequently, we want you to turn to someone behind you or someone in front of you rather than someone next to you. As our icebreaker activity, grab your phone. What's the photo on your phone? Introduce yourself to someone new.
I'm going to deal with all that stuff after. I think it's a pretty long morning. So I didn't quite put that slide together. I feel like, yeah. Oh, nice. So mine's changes on every clip. So that's Molly, and then that's Molly as a cowboy. So I've got mine to change. That's Molly with a big smile on her nose. And Nick has little baby. I love it. My phone and the photo changes. Right. That's a nice little message. Because for Charlotte's friend, her mum, so like one of my friends, is like a graphic designer, artist type person. So she runs things, she makes it online prints. And so she sells them to the online shop. And you get on her own website, but you can get the digital prints and you can hold them. So people print them like cards, like posters. So Charlotte got them, so let's say that Charlotte just like colour and try to shade and stuff. And I thought, that way it's not like it's fine. I can see it on my phone. And it was and Charlotte very cute. What do I got now? They've got a break. Morning tea. How long? Half an hour. Yeah. Do they know where to go? Yeah. Shall we do a new order? Well, the other option is I wonder if we put it on the chest unit. Yeah. Well, I've got bingo for later. They might not want to start. I was going to go. That's for lunch. I reckon just be like, right, hands up who's going to get a coffee. Yeah. And then lead the way to the coffee shop. All right. I reckon. Yeah. And they've got half an hour. I'm happy to shout if you like. You've got a long day. You can either do it now or do it in 2 minutes. We might just continue to chat.
All right. I love it. The noise in the room is exactly what we're looking for. So you've got a half-hour break now. Time to stretch your legs, time to get a coffee. Those of you that know the way to the cafe where the coffee lives probably need to take the hand of someone who doesn't know and show them the way. Back at 11.
It doesn't have to be coffee, but coffee for us means literal coffee, but coffee really just means have a break or anything you like. You don't have to
Back
drink
again
coffee.
at 11.
We just like coffee.
We do. We're far too much. There is. That little flicky switch.
Should I pause this?
There you go, Claire.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I know it's a long morning to be next get to eat again, but we'll keep moving through the information. All right, so lovely chatter, which means you're all meeting each other, which is fantastic. And maybe you can sort of turn some of those conversations later on to different ways you might want to get involved in the program. So I'm just going to finish off some of the first morning section stuff and then flow straight into some other specifics about our approaches in the MPT. So we are here to partner with you in your journey. So for us, getting your feedback on how things are going for you is really important. I've talked this morning about some of the changes that we make each year in response to student feedback. And so sometimes things take a bit longer for us to be able to action in terms of feedback, but sometimes there's things we can address fairly promptly, and we'll always do our best to do that. There are formal ways that you can communicate feedback to us. So at Flinders, at the end of every topic, they have something called a student evaluation of teaching, or a SET. That is a survey which is sent out by the university. It happens for every topic across the university, and it usually asks some fairly standard questions. But it is important feedback that the staff look at. Often there'll be questions about the topic overall, but also some of the key staff members will get feedback as well. So, as adult learners, and to be able to help that be as helpful as possible for us, we do want you to be honest, but also we really appreciate it when it's constructive feedback as well. So you may not have suggestions about what could change or be different, but I guess trying to remember that we do read that, and that there are people at the other end of the line that read that feedback. And we feel the same way as you when you get feedback on assessment when you feel a bit nervous. I'm going to say that I do have to set feedback, is for the most part positive, but, there is always that uncertainty for us as staff as well. We usually pick a day and a time when we're feeling, emotionally with a lot of good energy to read our sets, because, we're always a bit nervous to see what you thought of how we went, but it does come back to us and it does get taken seriously, it does get acted on, and just for information, that does form part of our staff performance reviews and how we get, evaluated and supported in our jobs as well. Just like when you're working in a job, you'll get performance reviews with a supervisor where they'll look at your work and how you're going and travelling. So we, like you, are learners in our jobs, as you are as students, and we go through that process. But that's just a bit of background to how and why they're important, because I do know that you will probably feel over-surveyed at some point, and we try to limit that to the most important type of things, but that's where that sits in there. We'll also be calling for student representatives for your year level, and I've got a slide on that shortly. We also survey our graduates, so our students that have just completed, and the employers that employed them get sent a survey every year to go actually how you found out as well, so how they've gone in that graduate start. So we do keep in contact with you as best we can once you graduate. So yes, it's about topics, but we do want to actually hear how did that actual transition from study to work go for you, and what did our employers think of you as our graduates as well. So we do take a very comprehensive way to trying to evaluate and understand our program. There's also very informal ways, so anytime you give feedback to a staff member in class, or we pick up discussions or things like that as well. Sometimes we will run other sort of questionnaires or focus groups on a particular topic that we might want information on. So Catherine, who we met before, has for the last year or so sort of set up a couple of sort of focus group chances for our international students in particular to get together just in this early part of the semester, so we can hear how you're going, or if there's any particular things that that we can help sort of to make clearer for you or help guide on, because it's the needs of every group are different every year, but we know that there's particular new things, particularly for you if you're new to Australia or new to Adelaide and new to study. But really those sorts of forums generally are open to everyone. If you've got things that you can tell us about, and then we have sort of other feedback sort of things on the MPT flow page as well. Then we also seek feedback from our clinicians and clinical educators. So we're very much open to learning and improving so we hope to role model that approach in our degree. And that's what I think makes Flinders' degree in particular so exciting, is our culture of doing that. We never stay stuck in our ways. We're always changing and improving. Some other ways to connect. Catherine and Alex in particular have been organising a little welcome afternoon tea. We're not quite sure what we're going to have yet, but we think we'll probably do something like, I don't know, get some Aussie Lamingtons or Anzacs or Vegemite on toast or, I don't know, something. Anyway, a chance. So we'll post more about that, but we've tried to find a time in the coming weeks where we can, book in an afternoon tea and hang out together after teaching class there. So we'll work out what we're doing, but we've got a date and time in mind for you, so that'll be fun. If you do want to be a course representative, I'll put a proper post out on the flow page, but we are calling for people from your year to be student representatives. And you would nominate, again, that would be to me over email if you are interested in that role, and then we'll work out how much interest there is and process from there. But the idea there is that you would be a student representative for this year, and you would carry through to next year, and you will meet, I think I've got, Shrishti, Kevin, Michelle and Matt, who are some of our final year reps who are available this afternoon. The other ones of them are on placement and doing other things like that. So you can always, work out how they found the student representative role. But the sorts of things that you would do is I meet with the student reps, at least, twice a year, but more often if needs be. So sometimes that's worked out 3 times a year. We've had like a first semester midway check-in, one maybe the middle of the year and one maybe end of the year. And they're your advocates on behalf of the cohort. So they sort of, go to you and sort of go, what are the issues, or are there questions, or how are things going? And I often come with an agenda of things I want to ask and get ideas on, like, hey, how are you finding, like last meeting, how are you finding all the announcements about job ads? I'm not convinced that we're doing that in the best way. I'm not sure what we could do about it. What do you like? What's working? We've updated all our online learning pages this year, and I'm like, how are you finding from your experience the information, like, again, not necessarily stuff that will get done straight away, but stuff that we can build into our work towards plans. And it may be specific questions about a topic or other stuff that's coming up as well. Anything's on the table, really. The student reps are also the sort of people who often will go to when we've got events like Open Day, and either they will invite them to sort of represent that, or if they can't, then they can put a call out to the rest of you and see like who's available and things like that. So there's different volunteer opportunities, but really it's not too onerous. It really is probably those core meetings with me as course coordinator, and then there's other opportunities that come up that you can say yes or no to as you like, or you might get invited to other college committees, which again you can say yes or no to, but often those things will open up to the broader student body as well. The main thing in those is we would do some training with FUSA, that's the Flinders Uni Student Association, so they do some training to help you understand that role. And so that way, you can be a great advocate and collaborator in that. All right. So Will was going to come and talk about FUPSA. So that is a student association of Flinders, and it's the Physio Student Association. And I guess that, oh, hang on. I might have his slides separate, sorry. I do. So I don't have that much to do with FUPSA because they're a student society, so I'm the wrong person to be talking about this, but look at all the fun you have when you join FUPSA. So it's yourselves, some of you may already be members because you were through the bachelor degree, and we'll be inviting students in the rural physio degrees to come join, but you know, they have a ball every year, midwinter. I don't know, everyone seems to get sick before placement the Monday. That's how I know when it's on, because everyone's... No, jokes aside. No, but seriously, when it was COVID, it was like... Anyway, everyone went down with it from the ball. It was frustrating for everyone, but that's all right. Fun balls. They will sometimes organise extra professional development nights and things like that as well, sort of different social events. And so there's a whole range of things that connect through there as well. It is free to join the membership, and again, I'll make sure I have all these slides put up there for you. There is a Facebook page. A couple of our staff are on it just because sometimes there's ways that we want to communicate, but I'm pretty sure that's the Facebook page that's got all our alumni on it as well, so it's probably got some, I could check, some 700-800 members, so lots of past Flinders graduates. There's some industry people on there because they might post information. It's not facilitated or moderated by the uni, even though there's a couple of us that happen to be on there for when we need to follow up stuff, but it's mainly, the admins are past graduates that run and things from there. That's where I'm seeing ads for, like, people might be selling their old placement shirts or things like that, sometimes uniforms, people put out sports trainer or job offers and things like that. That's the type of informal content that you tend to get on there. They have an AGM coming up that you can be part of. I know annual general meetings are not always fun, but they are calling for elections of all the different roles that they've got. So I would encourage you to think about that's another way you could get involved. If that's something you're interested in, I'm sure they'd really love to have people that are happy to just be active members, help with the planning of events and things, but also consider whether you'd put your hat in the ring for I'm not sure what roles they have, a president, vice president, secretary type, treasurer, or whatever it is type thing like that as well. So that's FUPSA. I'm sorry Will couldn't be here. All right, that means... All right, so back to teaching and learning in the MPT. So there's an overwhelming amount of information, but there are some sources of truth that we go to when we're looking for different bits of information. So the most sort of overarching sort of course rules and handbook, which is what are the broad aims and learning outcomes of the course that we went through this morning, are on this web page called Handbook. Handbook has also kind of got the study plan, which has the different topics you're doing in different orders through there as well. And it's also got sort of details about maximum time, like course completion rule. Even though it's a 2-year degree, enrolled in 2 years, all the sort of other sort of university rules we've got around, maximum time 4 years to complete and things like that as well, if any of that becomes relevant down the track. The placement pages that you get thrown to, which again is from a lot of the other onboarding information, is where you've got the PDF for the placement compliance checklists and instructions at other key places. And then when it comes to other aspects of university life, again, I know it's a lot to sort through, but there is a policy library which has got all the details about how assessment policies, practices, academic integrity policies, will policies, student conduct policies. I get that that's a lot to go through, but rather than me picking and choosing bits of that, it's the sort of thing that I suspect that you don't need it until you need it, and it's probably not the most useful information to try and tell you or retain today. It'll have much more impact, if you're in a situation where actually I might need an extension for assignment, that kind of thing, or something's happened. That's probably when you're going to either want information from that, but your topic coordinators would usually, or myself, would be the best port of call to help you navigate what a process is if you're coming across for it, because otherwise it's probably a lot if you trying to take it all in at once. But the sorts of information there is also, the university's structures around, if there are sort of, a page about sort of appeals and complaints, the process is like any conflict or inevitable event resolution. We always try to, resolve that at an interpersonal, local level first, but that outlines the different avenues and how that can happen if there are concerns or things that arise. And then all the sorts of things about, you'll know if you're on an elite athlete or, defence or other kind of things as well, things that relate to study plans and stuff like that. In terms of, for the physio specific, we do have, some things related to safety for practical skills. So what I've just handed out now is a consent form that we get you all to read, consider. In the process of, you're going to have to get informed consent from your patients, and so me getting informed consent for you is making sure that we tell you about what practical teaching is, what it involves, so you can consider that. You can read and have a look at what we believe your obligations are to be able to make sure that you're able to safely participate in that, and to make sure that that to engage in the practical skills that you've read through and you understand that. But if you don't, or if you think there's any variations to that, then please let me know. So that's that first part of the page. The second part of the page is seeking your consent to be able to do a photo roll this afternoon. We're trying to get to know you, so the reason why we're asking if you're happy for us just to take a simple photo is only for the staff use, so it's partly so that we can get to know you as well. It also means that when we do assessments, as I'll talk about shortly, that we do either audio record or skill record assessments, like exams, so that helps us with cross-marking and checking and having robust assessment procedures. So it's just making you aware that for those academic processes of the photo roll, again, we can make sure the right person's turning up to the right exams for the in-person things, and when it comes to actually running the assessments, that's what it relates to. You can read the information there. It's not photos that are getting published elsewhere. If we're doing other photos or our media team are coming to class to take photos like the ones we shared there, that will be related to that at that particular point in time. So it's not so that's how that relates to from there. I think the main thing from the practical skills that you'll see on the consent form is things like is around your responsibility around the scope of the skills you practice, in terms of making sure it's skills that you've been taught, but it's also around your fitness to be able to do the skills. Because while you act as patients for each other, obviously we don't want somebody practicing on you if you've got an injury or a health condition or something that might not be appropriate for. So it's that sort of thing. So for example, it's not that you can't participate, but if you do have anything that's, might affect your health personally or ability around that, it's just to let us know so we can work with you around that. This isn't meant to be a you can't do it type form. It's just making sure that you are safe doing the skills, and so are your peers on each other around that. But yeah, let me know if you've got any questions or things about that. We'll go through some of the safety and teaching spaces this afternoon. Professional conduct, you're already professionals as of now. And while we know that, no one ever gets their professional behaviour perfectly right, do we? We have lapses where we don't present our best selves in conversation, or we use words that were perhaps, insensitive, or we don't get things right always in how we approach things in our communication. But this is what we're working towards and what we're looking for. So we do have those, expectations that we work collaboratively together as a student and a staff cohort when it comes to that professional behaviour. And we're each open to sort of feedback around if someone picks up something, hey, when you communicate, I was wondering, could you please try in this different style, because that would help with. So we do have that open kind of supporting everyone when it comes to development of how the profession sees that behaviour, but knowing we won't always get it right, but that we have an open learning approach to being able to grow in that area. In terms of social media, there is a little bit of guidance from ARPRA around appropriate social media use for professionals. Now, as students, because you're registered with ARPRA, that may be worth having a look at. Some of their social media guidance probably more relates to businesses in terms of how you use it, but it's probably worth being aware that, where your study and professional and like your placement life overlaps, is trying to keep that, as clean as possible, related to future employers that may sort of access and be, your profile. I guess all those sorts of things that you'd be well across anyway. But I guess it does take a different lens now, and because now you're a physiotherapist, you represent physiotherapy in terms of your role. You now have a role to the public in terms of how that is, and you're a representative of the profession. So whether you like it or not, people will look at you and go, wow, you're a physio. And that may be their impression of what physiotherapy is. And so I think it's just thinking about through that and making sure that any of the communication around, respectful things, so you essentially, you just need to maintain that confidentiality aspect, particularly when it comes to sort of placement or other location-based things as well, because when you're on placement work sites, you'll be bound by the same sorts of things as staff there. If you've got any questions, I'm sure there's supervisors and staff along the way, but I think it's just worth sort of, flagging some of those complexities that we all live and work through. In terms of COVID-19 safety, I mean, still feel like you have to put that slide in at the bottom. But, the reality is that people get sick and stuff like that. And if you're not able to come to class out of respect, we do ask that you perhaps do let your teacher know. And then again, that's more around that professional behaviour courtesy side of things. But it also means that if there's something going on that because we don't want you coming to class sick, because we don't want everyone else getting sick, and we want you to get better. But if you are going to sort of looks like that's impacting your ability to participate and attend, it's worth reaching out so we can support you as soon as possible, not a couple of weeks down the track when things have got harder from there, about how that comes with that. So all those sorts of things. But we do, as we'll go through this afternoon, the cleaning in the prac rooms, we take all those things, on board from that there. All right, so master's level learning. I know Matt started the day by saying, I know you all probably feel nervous, excited, which is a good thing in some ways. There's that sweet spot, isn't there, where, a bit of nerves can be good, and that excitement can really, help drive you forward. But it is a bit of a step up from a bachelor level degree to a master level degree. And the ways we see that is it's really that more of a focus on that critical reflection and synthesis of information. It's much more independent and self-directed in learning. We know that you've probably been doing all of that already, but it really is continuing to develop and applying to this practice of physiotherapy, how you prepare for clinical experiences and teaching coming up, and being able to sort of drive and have responsibility of that and of your schedule and how that comes together. We've talked a lot this morning about that peer and social learning aspect, which the how we learn we think is really important here as much as the what you learn. Our staff, we would like to see ourselves more as coaches here to guide you, because the reality is I'll be your course coordinator for 2 years and then I'll be your colleague for hopefully the rest of your career. So that's how we would really like to approach that relationship in working with you. Obviously, we know enough, we know good, but things are always changing, and we have a good sense of being able to guide you through that if there's stuff that we don't know or how to connect to things like that. But we're very familiar with the, all across what we need to be for physio practice, but it's a huge scope of practice to be across. We do look for you to appraise your own work. So that's that idea of trying to set your radar of, not being oblivious to like what you don't know, but also no one needs to be hypercritical of themselves. You need to celebrate the good things that you're doing, and that ability to judge and just be fairly objective and be like, yeah, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, but this is how, I think I could bridge that gap, or this might be what's missing from there. And that's where, as educators, we can help you unpack that, because sometimes that can be hard to be. You can be like, I don't know what's working, but I'm not kind of quite sure how to get from there to there. We want to encourage you to be able to do most of that yourself, but that is exactly what we're here for, is to help with, is to help you with that learning process. It is different styles of communication, and what you're going to be forced to do is to adapt to communicating with a whole different range of people within your clinical practice. And I think that's often where lots of the challenge of this comes, is that every person is different, and that adaptability is something we're really looking for you to develop. And there is managing different topics. You have got clinical components, and then there's more theoretical components, and how you sort of manage that style of learning side by side is potentially going to feel a bit different depending on what you've been doing before. It is a full-time study load. For context, the university would say that a 4.5 unit topic averages about 135 hours worth of work over that topic. So when you think about a topic and you go, I've only got 1 hour of a lecture or this per week, that means that we're trying to leave a lot of space for that independent study time, that independent practice, which we see is really key for success. But at the same time, we recognise you do have different life roles and responsibilities. You're not just a physio student, you're an employee, you're a child, you're a carer, you're a partner of somebody, and you do have different life roles. And the reality is that we know that pretty well all of you need to and want to work as well. We recognise that's hard, and so hence we're never going to be prescriptive about how much you should or shouldn't do, because it depends on how you go through things. But we do from time to time see people that have probably stuff's right on the cusp, or things are a little bit out of balance in terms of how they're trying to manage stuff that's impacting study or studies impacting other stuff and vice versa. That's where we're here to help. That's where the student success and wellbeing advisors are here to help to take that holistic approach to working out what we can do, because we are here to help you. We want to see you be successful. We're not here to catch you out on assessments. We're here to get the best out of you we can, and let you show us the best that you can do and everything that you can do. So it is a step up. It is different, but it's also very doable as well. Yep. So critical reflection, and the other thing is, which is hard to do, but have that confidence that that if something doesn't go to plan, is either to fail, or something doesn't work, is to fail or fall forward. We talk about having, that growth mindset of it's not necessarily like it's a never, it just might be it's a not yet at this point in time on this particular assessment, or we need more time or some different strategies to approach getting to that point of what success is for you. So it's that problem solving. We are goal focused, but it's a journey, and we're here to help you enjoy that journey along the way. We do need to have everybody cover practice areas of physio, as I mentioned, and that helps you to be a well-rounded professional, and that's required of every single physio program. Some of you may have a very set idea of what you want to do, and some of you might not, and all of that is totally fine, and it might change along the way. I came to physio, about the only thought I put into the degree was, I saw a physio once in my hip, it got better, that looks like a good career for me. I really didn't overthink it. And I went, if I can get into physio, I'm sure there's ways you can change at uni from there. And I rocked up and there I went. I thought, I thought physios only did sports. And I went, ballet's not a sport, but maybe I could be a physio for the Australian Ballet. Again, that was about the extent of my thinking about my career. And then I got into it and I'm like, that's not the plan for me. And I discovered I really liked my... I probably had good role models that probably influenced me, the type of content that I really enjoyed around all the medical side of things and respiratory. I also really liked neuro as well. When I got the new grad position at Flinders and was working out there, I don't know, I think it was good role models actually. I really liked the cardio seniors, and that went on well, so I kind of gravitated to that area. And before you knew it, I was a cardio hospital physio working in ICU, and then doing a PhD in muscle function in ICU, and I don't know, then you come to academia and you keep working, it just moves in a totally different path to what you thought. So be open-minded as well about those areas. And even if it's not an area of practice that you love, it'll always make you a better clinician to understand what is going on for that group of people. So while I know the hospital work really well, I'm a better physio because I understand what my private practice colleagues are going through. If I've got a sense of, what is the challenges of their practice or that scope of things, or what is it like to work in that setting? And I'm better because, I still need that knowledge, because at the end of the day, the patient in front of me wants to see a physio, and they expect and they deserve me to have a good sense of all broad skill sets and bring that together. So I know there's bits that you won't love, but, it's still lots you can get out of it, and it will well round you and make you better for your patients at the end. Right, so when it comes to the type of approach of learning that we've got, hopefully it's not foreign to you that a lot of it is online based. So Flinders Learning Online, or Flow, is the system that we use for that. You might also hear us talk about it as Canvas, and that's just the brand of the platform. Flinders who was here for the changeover from the old one, Moodle to Canvas here? Yeah, you've lived through that pain too. Anyway, if you're here now, you get all the nice shiny pages, but it was a bit of a process to kind of move to that new online interface. But if you hear us talking about Canvas or Flow, it's actually the same thing for those of you that are new here. Yeah, your topics go live 7 days before classes commence, which means if you can't get onto your topic pages for semester 1, then let us know, because we'll need to check something with your enrolment and things like that. Yeah, and so there is support if you're trying to navigate it, but it's fairly intuitive how it all works. In terms of teaching activities, so in the MPT, where you've got a lecture on your timetable, the majority of the time, in fact I would say 99.9% of the time, I can't think of any time when it's not, is that they're online and pre-recorded. We've got a place in your timetable about when you could do it. Usually, in fact, and we almost always want you to have watched and gone through the online lecture content before you come to a practical. So it's on your timetable, number one, to remind you that it's there and to kind of suggest where in the sequence it might go. But you can watch that ahead of time. You can do that in your own time. You don't have to do it at the time that the online lecture is timetabled, but we've decided to keep it on there for that signalling. In terms of practicals, we can't enforce this attendance, but we would strongly suggest, and we do think it's essential to attend. We do not record practical sessions and those tutorials, and that's for several reasons, because it's actually not a great quality learning experience. Practicals, while there is sometimes that very much us teacher teaching you, the bulk of the time is meant to be that interactive skill practice learning from each other, so that doesn't work well unless you do it really well in like an online hybrid format. Yeah, so, and also when you're at a practical or a tutorial, you need to be able to ask questions in a safe space without having it, even though it's only another peer that would watch it in the topic, like you don't need that recorded and we don't need that recorded either. We need to be able to learn collaboratively together. So they're not recorded, but often there will be preparatory work before coming, and sometimes, usually that preparation work will include a recording of the skills that you're going to learn. So the idea of us recording videos of not all, but majority of the key skills is you can watch the skill before you come. So when you come to class, you can maximise your time on task of actually doing the skill and getting feedback from the staff and actually practicing the skill, rather than having to be retaught it. There will be some of that demonstration still, because it is easier and nicer to see it live sometimes, but it's really trying to maximise your time, that when you come to class, we're trying to give you the best value possible and that chance to practice, because it does take practice. It's manual hands-on skills, and the only way you're going to get good at it, like learning to drive, is you just actually have to put the hours in. You have to practice the transfers, you have to practice the fine motor skills and the gross motor skills and your communication skills, and get that done through there. So that's what we're focusing on. And similarly for tutorials and workshops as well. And then, yeah, there's other aspects of that independent practice as well. We're going to see the afternoon prac spaces upstairs, but most of it is held in our STIRT buildings here, which is where our physio officers are scattered along with the occupational therapy officers up on level 4. We have the 2 prac rooms, and we're just setting up some extra skill practice rooms that will come on board hopefully soon, but I haven't got a clear date for you yet, sorry. You know, the teaching obviously occurs sometimes in Health to Go clinic. Sometimes we do use the university buildings just across at the medical centre, or up the hill part of main campus, or at the Tonsley campus, which is just along the train line. Yeah. We do ask that you bring your own towel, clean towel, to practical lessons, and that's particularly for your MSK type topics, but that's used for things like, you know, respective draping when you're sort of using limbs that might be used to kind of, you know, support your head or other things like that as well. So we ask that you be responsible for your towel and your laundering of that, please. Yeah. You may be given some bits of equipment over the year that will be yours to use as you need it, particularly, for example, when we get to respiratory to be responsible for. But yeah, otherwise we've got everything else. In terms of assessment, you know, is a necessary process of being able to validate the skills that you have, but it also serves that purpose of getting feedback for you. We know that assessment drives learning. There's nothing like a test or a viva or a quiz to make you and force you make learning the content. But importantly, we've tried to make all of our assessments as authentic or realistic to what the demands or the knowledge required is to be able to do the job in clinical practice. Often we're running past our supervisors, our industry clinicians, the ideas for assessment and the scenarios to go, hey, how realistic is this, or how often are you seeing this condition? So we are actually designing that together to try and make what can be a nerve-wracking, unpleasant experience still as meaningful and pleasant as possible. As I said before, we're not trying to ever catch you out with these. We're trying to give you the opportunity to show us what you can do. The key assessment information you'll find in your topic book, but you'll also need to look on the flow page under each assessment task, where it will give the detailed information about what the task is, when it's due, what's required, and particularly information about things like there's academic integrity points, like artificial intelligence, what may or may not be appropriate given the task, to make sure that you're adhering to that. So essentially, the uni policy, does give guidance on what happens about if you need an extension or deferred assessment and stuff like that as well. But again, I feel like that's the sort of thing that if you need it when you come to it, you'll find it out, but our staff are happy to help if you've got questions. But really for our live assessments, when I'm talking about we do prac exams and oral viva assessments, if you can't sit a live assessment, it's the same as an exam that you'll need some sort of documentation to certify why you weren't able to be present for that in order to sort of arrange a deferred assessment. So I know we have different assessment types, but the principles all still apply from there. And there are some specific conditions there related to clinical placement as well. In terms of our assessment, it's very varied in the Masters. We do use a range of live assessments. Sometimes we get you to film yourself doing a skill and to upload that. And then we have a range of written type submissions as well, and written work that you do. Sometimes quizzes, tests are run online. Sometimes we run them almost like more of that exam condition kind of in person. And you'll have that in first semester along with these skill exams and practical exams as well. So you're never going to be assessed on something that you haven't kind of been taught or given the skills to do. There's often sort of revision sessions, practice things that you can do for that as well. But I do recognise it's probably the prac exams and vivas, which are a really different type of assessment for you. And I know that for some people it may have actually been a while since you've done any written work, and you might need to refresh on like your assignment writing or referencing and things like that as well. If you've done prior study, which has been very like exam based and not written work based. So everyone will be at a different point with that. But I've got some information on how you can get support with that shortly. When you get an assessment task returned to you, there's usually a combination of like qualitative and quantitative information that you get. To be honest, I can't remember where we're up to. We used to just give, the university policy used to be to just give grades and not the numbers. So that was like a pass, credit, whatever. I think when we moved to the new Canvas system, there's no way to stop that, so you get numbers. But anyway, I guess from our point of view, like, again, we're about the quality and the process. And so, yes, while we do need to have that grade for you, it's probably the comments and that kind of rubric feedback, which we're trying to make that as meaningful and helpful for you to be able to then reflect on and take forward from there. And sometimes we'll audio record comments or do things like that. So you can expect a range of feedback on those formal assessments. But of course, you're getting feedback in class as well in working with us teaching staff. Some assessment tasks will be graded, and then some tasks have what's called non-graded, which basically means it's a check off to either be like a pass or fail type line for that as well. So you will see that at some points. And some assessment tasks are what's called a hurdle task. So when you're looking at your assessment information, if it says it's a hurdle, that means that you must pass that assessment in order to pass the topic, kind of regardless of whatever the collective numbers and grade works out at. So that'll be signposted on your topic pages and in the topic books from there. But yeah, usually, we're only allowed to put those hurdle tasks in for things that relate to very key professional skills that are like those pre-placement skills to check that basically you can do that skill, the prac exams and vivas, to then be able to progress to what's usually a placement topic to make sure we're confident of that. So you'll see that information there. Academic integrity, of course, is important. It's about university values of, honesty, integrity and all those sorts of things, and it reflects your professionalism and how you work. But again, it can sometimes feel like a bit of a grey space and difficult to understand. So there is information about what academic integrity is. So that's all those things of basically like, don't copy other people's work. You can't resubmit work for an assignment that you've used for something else, like it has to be new work for an assessment task. You can't collude or collaborate with people on work that's meant to be an individual piece of work. You can study and learn together, but if it's an individual assessment task, then you have to be the one that does that assessment task. You can't misrepresent your work, so that means you stretch the truth of things, talk about experiences that didn't happen, or, certainly, hopefully it'll be fairly clear that the big no-nos of things like exam cheating, you can't pay someone to sit your exams, you can't submit your work to online study sites, you can't pay for your assignments to be done, hopefully that's fairly clear. But there is information on the uni pages about that. I appreciate that sometimes artificial intelligence can be difficult to navigate, but there is information again on what that looks like, and we're trying to get our staff to make sure they're as clear as they can be. But fairly well for the masters, you shouldn't be using AI for your main work and stuff like that. For a prac exam, it probably doesn't apply because you've got to turn up yourself. Similarly for a viva, you've got to turn up and talk yourself. The online quiz and tests can sometimes trick people up. It's almost no AI use for that, which means that, we can see the flow logs at the back end of the page. Your MUSC and PMF topics are running those quizzes live in person. So we're trying to put all those things in place to make sure that that's easier for you to abide by as well. And when it comes to written work assignments, again, if you're submitting it, it's got to be your own work. And hopefully there's some guidance around, what is possible from there, because sometimes there is some AI use permitted, but that may be for things like using like a Grammarly for like checking spelling or understanding concepts. You can use it as a learning tool, but you're not allowed to usually put assignment questions into an AI thing and say, write me this, you've got to do the writing, but you could use AI to understand concepts. So I know that can feel a little bit grey, but everyone's responsibility to navigate how we do that. There's actually going to be an academic integrity training module that I've just got a link to that I'll put on one of your topic pages. So there is training available from the uni that we would like everyone to do as you start off with that. But help is available. So particularly for that academic skills support, the student learning support service is your best place to go for that. There are a whole range of like online resources, tutorials, worksheets. If you need to write a critical reflection, which you do for IPP, I found yesterday there's a whole little worksheet on what is a critical reflection and how to write it. So if you're coming up to a new assignment type, or you want to double check how do I reference assignments and those sorts of things, there's recaps of all that information available and huge amounts and more. So there's elements of that available online. There's also services and times where you can do drop-in sessions with the library, and you can get that one-on-one individualised support as well. So particularly if there's a new assessment type or something that's a little bit different, there is a huge range of stuff available. And I know sometimes it can feel really hard to go, oh, why would I reach out? What do I need? But we have had students use particularly some of the assignment writing and referencing stuff in previous years. And when they said it was good, I feel like, okay, I feel much more comfortable recommending this to you now because they've certainly got a lot out of it. And then the library isn't just a space where there's books and resources. That's often where lots of those learning sessions those other academic development skills are kind of hosted out of as well. Trying to think. I know I'm close on time, aren't I, Kelly? I don't think I'll be any more slides in this section. Just to recap on some of the other policies and procedures, so I know this is very boring stuff. We've talked about having you registered with ARPRA already. We've talked a bit about confidentiality and privacy. I think I've talked about attendance at teaching. While we often can't take attendance, it would be strongly encouraged, and we know that if people are not attending practicals, stuff gets really tricky really quickly. So we do need that practice. If something comes up and you're looking at needing leave from study for an extended period, I'm the person that you would talk to about that. I've given you information about how we seek to work to address concerns, or complaints, or appeals of decisions, and assessments, and social media. So I think that is actually done. Do you need a in-room stretch at least again before we introduce Kelly? All right. Well, you need to get your slides up. Stretch. Do have a stand up. We're physios and we've sat for longer than 30 minutes, which is naughty of the physical activity researcher to not make you stretch.
Definitely. Oh, not bad. I pulled out. I realised I'd saved it in 2024, which is not helpful. That one though? Is it in 24? That is the one. So I've got everything loaded on my laptop, but there's no HDMI. That looks like the note. That looks like it. I've got the video and stuff on it. Should I just present from here? Yeah? Then we find the cable. Perfect. Hopefully it works. We'll see. What time am I supposed to be going to? Yeah. Alright. Okay, let's see if I can use this. I didn't bring a pen. I didn't bring one either. So I did take a note.
Oh, do you want a note? A pen?
Oh, no, that's fine. All right, guys. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Claire? You can hear me. Okay, good. Thank you, guys. Sorry, I know it's been a long time sitting. I'm going to attempt to use this, but there's never a good spot to pin it on me. So let's see how we go. Hi, and welcome. I'm Kelly Huxley. I am going to talk to you this morning about placements. So I've seen a few familiar faces in the room from neuroscience, which I teach in the Bachelor of Health Sciences. So welcome back to any of you who I've met before. And I also teach in Master of Physio in quite a few different topics. I'll see you in first semester in PMF.
but neuro rehab is my main clinical area of experience and where I still work clinically now. So let's get started. So physio placements, we've talked a lot about your topics probably and the structure of learning. Your placements are where you get to take some of those skills and the knowledge that you've learnt earlier in the program and you get to put them in practice in real life. So kind of your opportunity to jam with the professionals, as I like to say. You get some experience in using those skills, refining those skills and developing them, but they're also really great opportunities to learn from experienced clinicians as well. Are there any musicians in the room out of interest? Ooh, one? Anyone? Two? Okay. Three? Excellent. Just this expression of jam with the professionals, there's a really famous bassist called Victor Wooten who talks about music as language, and I think there are some really nice parallels between what he talks about and learning on placement. I'm probably stretching those parallels a little bit, but for the musicians and anyone else who's interested in the room, you can look him up, Victor Wooten, really interesting TED Talk. All right, so we'll have some time for questions, but if you like, just scan the QR code above, and if you think of any questions while I'm talking, please feel free to input them, and at the end I'll bring them up, and hopefully if I haven't answered them already in the presentation, we can address them then. Everyone got it? Everyone got that? Yep. I'm going to switch microphones. That one's annoying me. Okay. While I'm at it as well, so obviously any questions that you put in are going to come up on the screen a little bit later. If you have any questions that are of a more personal nature, you're welcome to come and speak to me in person, or you can email me directly at any time. So, for placements, we have a wonderful placement education support team who work together in forming placements, making sure that they're addressing the needs that we need them to, but also supporting you while you're on placement and in preparation as well. So my role in this team is as the placement education coordinator. So I coordinate placements over both first and second year of the program. For reference, that's over 600 placements every year. I'll allocate you all to the sites that you'll attend, and I kind of monitor your placement journey and your experiences to make sure that we're covering all the core areas and settings that we need to make sure that we can safely release you at the end as a competent physio. I also help to create some new placements and monitor the quality of our existing ones, and I work with some of the other allied health disciplines as well. So we kind of team together to try and tweak things and come up with some new creative experiences along the way too. And then here you can see our wonderful placement education team. So this is shared between some of our academic staff. We are all still practicing physiotherapists, okay? So we will teach you in class, we'll be working with you from an academic level as well, but we also have that clinical experience that ties really nicely into your placements, and we provide that support for you and for your clinical educators when you're on placement. So we're kind of that link between the university and your placement site. If you're having trouble on placement, we will be your first port of call, and we all split ourselves up across the placement sites according to our sort of areas of clinical experience. So hopefully we've got appropriate clinical skills that we can help you out if need be. And then on the far right, we have Catherine Shepherd, who is our Health to Go physio coordinator. So she's responsible for that overall management of physio clinical services in Health to Go, including the placements there. And that's all provided in our own Health to Go clinic, which are we visiting at some stage today or at lunch, if you want to. Okay, beautiful. It's a great site. We work with other disciplines there as well, but that's sort of the main provider of our musculoskeletal placement experiences. So, in the 2 years in the Master of Physio, you will complete the equivalent of 26 weeks of full-time placement. So that's just over 1,000 hours across lots of different areas and settings. So I've probably stretched away from this a little bit, but basically we look at core practice areas of musculoskeletal, neurological rehab and cardiorespiratory practice. What we're kind of acknowledging now is that placement experiences can involve all of the above. So we tend to not have in practice isolated experiences for each of those. So what we expect is if you go out on placement, you will probably have to draw on your skills from multiple areas in that real life setting. So we try and get you some experience across all of those, but also across settings themselves. So you will have an acute hospital placement, a rehabilitation placement, and something that's out in the community. What that looks like for everyone will be different, okay? And the order in which you do them is different so that we can get those 600 placements happening over the year. We also try to get you experience across the lifespan. So working from our peds and young adults all the way through to aged care as well. We do have some sort of different opportunities in our placements where we engage more so in things like interprofessional practice with other allied health disciplines particularly, or other health professionals, and some specific cultural learning experiences as well, okay? And I'll talk about a bit some of those in a bit more detail soon. But across that 26 weeks and over 1,000 hours, basically what we're working to is the accreditation requirements to make sure that we are crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's from a university perspective, but that you are developing competencies to reach that expected entry-level standard for a graduate physiotherapist. All right, quick show of hands. I know you haven't really started any content yet in the Masters, but is there anyone in the room who is picturing themselves working as a physiotherapist in a hospital when they finish? Ooh. Cool. All right. What about working rurally or remotely? Ooh, yeah, cool. This is exciting. Okay, good. Anyone who's thinking private practice is the way? Yep. And anyone for aged care or more community-based services? Couple? Okay, cool. Well, positive signs. So our key placement partners are spread across a lot of different settings and a lot of different healthcare providers. So SA Health, being our public health service in South Australia, is one of the biggest ones who provide placements for us. So these sites are spread all across Adelaide, but also regional areas as well. And these can be inpatient hospitals, so public hospital sites, outpatient services, but also community services as well. We do have, as I said, regional-based placements in public health across the state. We also partner with some of the private hospitals in Adelaide, so Ashford Private and Flinders Private Hospitals. And then a number of community disability services. So majority of these are working with NDIS clients. Some of the biggest ones here are Novita, Brain Injury SA, the MS Society, and Neuromoves, who work a lot with spinal cord injury. Then aged care, ECH, Southern Cross Care, we'll probably have a few others to add to that this year. And that can be across residential care and also community services as well. We also have a number of private practices. So we do have Health to Go as a musculoskeletal outpatient service that's provided here at the university for placement, but we also have partnerships with some private practices as well. So there's a few listed there. And then we have some other regional placements across South Australia. So these might be in private practices or community services as well. But we also have some placements in the Northern Territory, some in Victoria, potentially some in New South Wales coming as well. So we spread ourselves definitely across the state and also into some of the bordering states as well. All right. Here on the left, you can see our Adelaide local health network. So this is SA Health, Public Health. It's split into, I think it's actually 5 different networks. But you can see here up the top is the Northern Adelaide, then the Central in green and Southern Adelaide in purple. Then there's also the regional sites, which you can see on the right-hand side, and women's and children's services as well. So South Australia is big, and even though Adelaide's probably considered to be a smallish capital city, we're kind of very long from north to south. So just to kind of set the scene, set the expectation, there is an expectation that all students will travel within the metropolitan area, so across this north to south, for their placements. Acknowledge sometimes that will be travelling a lot further than others, but for us to be able to meet all of the requirements and provide placements for everybody, there is that expectation that you will be able to travel to access placement. Some placements, particularly community-based ones, might require you to have a driver's licence and or access to a car for placements, but I'll talk a little bit later about how I'll seek some more information from you so that we're not matching you up with a placement experience that doesn't match on those grounds. Okay, Health to Go, we mentioned before, so our main musculoskeletal placement provider and source of interprofessional placement opportunities as well. So welcome to go and explore later and see where it is. In terms of physio placements, what students are providing is very accessible and affordable physiotherapy consultation for the public. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge, tell your friends, family, they can come and seek some very reasonably priced physio treatment here. These experiences in Health to Go are normally partnered with an external provider as well. So anyone who has a placement in Health to Go will probably spend 4 days in Health to Go and then 1 day a week with an external provider. And this is across a lot of different areas. We partner with some high-level sporting teams, with even secondary colleges who are looking a lot at high-level sports, private practices, those sorts of things as well. So there's lots of experiences available there too. All right, Northern Territory specifically. At the moment, we have placements in Darwin, mostly based in the hospital there, but also in Nhulunbuy, which is the star on the right, the blue star, on the Gove Peninsula in East Arnhem Land. So these are really great experiences, I think, to fit in a bit of travel while you're studying, but also for a really culturally immersive experience with a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander clients that you'd be working with across either of those sites. I thought here, we've recently just had a video produced from one of our students who finished last year who did a placement in Nhulunbuy. So I want to show you that video just for 2 minutes so you can get a bit of an idea of what that might look like. Hopefully the volume will be okay. I'll try not to blast your ears.
This is a quick video covering a few highlights from our recent physiotherapy placement in Nhulunbuy, East Arnhem Land, Northern Territory. This personally was my favourite placement. It was an eye-opening experience and one that I recommend.
Here's me thinking everything was working perfectly.
I stand here like I know how to fix it and I don't. I don't know, exit out of PowerPoint somehow.
Actually, that's a good idea, isn't it? So confident. that look more like a video? All right, let's try again.
This is a quick video covering a few highlights from our recent physiotherapy placement in Nhulunbuy, East Arnhem Land, Northern Territory. This personally was my favourite placement. It was an eye-opening experience and one that I recommend highly to anyone who is interested in remote Indigenous healthcare. We spent 8 weeks up there with a group of other healthcare students doing primarily community-based cardiac rehab physio, which involves seeing our client base in Yukala aged care, as well as running a session with the Dubma children and ARC's aged care group once a week. We also got the opportunity to fly and drive out to remote communities to see NDIS clients ranging from children with growth developmental delay, prosthetic rehab, Parkinson's disease, intellectual disabilities and much more. Seeing how Indigenous people live and receive healthcare in these environments was a unique and valuable experience. Building rapport and trust was a crucial skill that we developed, which was important as trust led to participation, and that was a rewarding journey to be part of. We had to recognise that healthcare is not always their number one priority, family is. This often meant clients were not always home when we visited, which meant being flexible and accommodating a change of plans was key. Our physio treatment involved doing traditional on-country activities such as fishing, cutting down trees for didgeridoos, picking pandanus for weaving, digging up tree roots and grass roots for different coloured dyes, making spears, mud muzzling and oyster picking. A lot of these activities are the Yolngu people's preferable form of exercise, as they don't enjoy exercising for no reason. On top of this, we also tried to do a lot of outcome measures like the 6-minute walk test, respiratory treatments such as bubble pep and ACBT, and general assessments. However, the volume was quite challenging at times. Depending on the time of year, you can expect very hot, humid weather, rain, awesome beaches and sunsets, pristine waterholes, crocs, and an incredibly welcoming community. The accommodation is great and there is so much happening in the town. There are more sports than you can think of, including pickleball, mixed footy, swimming, as well as events like the Hog Shed every Sunday for live music. Looking back, the biggest skills I developed were patience and cultural awareness. Understanding that things don't always go to plan and learning to be adaptive was crucial. Going in with an open mind, minimal expectations, and a willingness to adapt will be massive in having an enjoyable, successful, and fun placement.
All right, so that's Nhulunbuy very quickly. I will seek some more information from you at a later stage, so there will be an opportunity for you to express interest if you're thinking that's something that might specifically appeal to you. All right, so here highlighted in yellow are where your placement topics or your topics that incorporate placements fit. So you'll see here in year 1, you've got 2 placements coming up this year. The first is a part of one of your first semester topics, performance of movement and function. This is a 1-week, not observational, foundational. Observing means watching. Foundation means you get to do. Sorry, I catch myself every time. 1 week foundational placement, and that will occur at some stage in June. So you will have completed all of your topic content so far by then, and you'll have 1 week sort of in that break part in the middle of the year. Then at the end of the year, as part of physiotherapy clinical practice, you will have your first 5-week full-time placement in one of 2 blocks, which I'll show in a sec. Then in second year, you have 4 topics which relate only to placements, okay? So you'll have 2 of those, 2 5-week full-time or equivalent placements in first semester and 2 in the second semester. So there's no other on-campus teaching associated with those topics. It's just your placement. So I don't know how well you can see that, but that 1 week foundational placement fits there in first year in weeks 25, 26 and 27. So you'll just do 1 of those weeks, okay? Not all 3, 1 of those. And then at the end of the year will be 1 of those 2 5-week blocks there. When you're not on placement, there will be on-campus teaching. So we just flip that for whoever's on placement in each block. And then in second year, we've got 8 blocks highlighted there, and you complete 4 placements across those 8 blocks. What that looks like for everyone will be a little bit different so that we can fit everything in. In second year, you have some other topics that run longitudinally across the semester. So you might have an intensive period of study, and then you'll have some assignment work to do that might carry over while you're on placement as well. We try to reduce that burden as much as we can, but still expect that you might have some assignment work to do while you're also on placement. Okay. So placement logistics, most placements are 5-week full-time blocks, as we've kind of shown you there. There are some longitudinal experiences, so that's part-time over a greater number of weeks, like the Nhulunbuy placement, for example, is over 8 weeks. This year will only be a 1-week and a 5-week for the way that we have to fit it into the program, but next year there are some opportunities for longer part-time placements. To head out on placement, meeting all the compliance requirements is really critical, which I'll probably emphasise a few times in this presentation. Bottom line though, if you haven't completed all of those compliance requirements in time, you can't go out on placement, and that might actually lead to a fail grade for the topic if you haven't demonstrated that you're actually trying to get these things done in time. Like I've kind of touched on before, there is varied scope of practice across your placements, and like I said, everyone will kind of do that in a bit of a different order. But there's also lots of different activities that you'll be doing while you're on placement. So there is one-to-one patient care, but you'll also kind of be integrated into what the physiotherapists that you're doing normally do. So things like team meetings or discharge planning meetings, planning services or planning groups, potentially participating in research or doing some data collection. There might be an education role to your placement, or even developing some resources or participating in a project, okay? So client care is obviously a big part of what we do, but there's a lot else up there that falls under the role of a physio as well. So there is an allocation process for placements. What I will do a bit later in first semester is send out a survey to gain some more information from you relating to things like access to a car, driver's license, can you swim for hydrotherapy? And I do provide an opportunity for people to express interest in particular types of placements. I can't guarantee anything. At the end of the day, the most important part of my role is making sure that everyone has had the appropriate experiences for us to confidently say at the end of the program, you've ticked all the boxes and you're ready to practice as a physio. But we do have some consideration of individual needs and interests. Like I said, can't promise anything, but it is helpful for me to know what is important to you and what you're interested in as well. Also important to note that some of our placements have this interprofessional focus, so you'll be working with other disciplines, but you might also be supervised by someone who is not a physiotherapist, okay? So you might have some days where you're with a physiotherapist and some days where you're supervised by another discipline, like an occupational therapist or a speech pathologist, and that might be shared across students from different disciplines as well. So that's becoming more and more common, and is a great opportunity for you guys to get a different set of eyes, different opinion, but also have a greater understanding of how these different disciplines work in practice as well. All right, rural and remote placements. So set the expectation early. We do expect everyone to complete at least one rural or remote placement during their course. There are some exceptions to that, but on the whole, pretty much everyone can expect to have one rural or remote placement. They are generally considered to be more than 100 k's outside of Adelaide. Places like Mount Barker or Gawler don't technically qualify because they're pretty close. And there are some outer areas of Adelaide like Strathalbyn, Victor Harbour, etc., but there's still university accommodation and supports available there. You can head to that link if you like, but I'll provide another one for physio placements a little bit later, but that provides a little bit more information about rural placements and what to expect. Like I said, we also have opportunities in Northern Territory, Victoria, potentially New South Wales coming up. If you want to do more than one rural placement, by all means, let me know. I will pop that in the survey, so you can let me know via that avenue. We certainly support that because there are a lot of different practice areas that can be accessed rurally. And if that's an area that you're interested in working in when you graduate, those regions are really excited to have students who are thinking about working there. It gives them a really authentic experience to know what to expect, and is kind of like a really long job interview for you as well, so they can see what you're like in practice too. There is some financial support for travel and accommodation, and I'll provide a link for you shortly to be able to have a look up some more information about that. All right. Some quick, frequently asked questions that I might address now, and then I'll see if any extra ones come up at the end. Can I continue with paid work during placement? Is probably the most common one that we hear. It depends. So your placement is considered an assessment activity, like an exam, and should be treated as such. Your placement times, so start and finish time, are set by the sites, and we expect that students will be available, and any changes to placement days or times can't really be accommodated for work. Also need to consider your overall study load and what you can manage, and there are some links via our physio placement page for financial support if you're needing them as well. If you're heading off on a rural placement, also important to think about that now. There aren't many that you could commute back to Adelaide on the weekends, and you might burn yourself out in the process as well. So potentially expect that if you're heading out on a rural placement that you won't be able to work in that time. So think about planning ahead to make sure that financially you've stockpiled some savings perhaps to support you in that time as well. What about the others? Can I organise my own placement with a site? Technically, no. There's a lot that goes into it from our perspective in terms of setting up, making sure it's a quality placement, that there's adequate facilities available, that your supervisors have adequate training and can supervise you appropriately. So as much as it's a great idea, really we need a lot of control, I think, from our end to make sure that you're actually getting a really quality placement experience. If you have concerns when you're on placement, that's where that placement education team comes in handy. So you will have an allocated person to support you. If you need, they are your first port of call, so please reach out to them, email them. I think we're a fairly approachable team, so please don't hesitate. It's better if we know about problems earlier rather than later. And you're welcome to talk to me as well about problems too. Where can you find more information? I'll give you a link for that in a second. And in terms of preparing for placement, I know you're going to have a lot to do after today, but compliance will be the number one thing for now. You can't actually go out on placement if you haven't met your compliance requirements, so that's the good one to tick off first. But when you do head out on placement, some advice for preparation is to find out more about your placement site. So do a quick Google search. We've got some placement site information available on the MPT course information page, so you can look that up. But really seek to gain an understanding of the placement site, what they're about, what types of clients they might be seeing, so that then you can prepare yourself in terms of your knowledge and your skills and any relevant questions you might have before you're going in. So try and then from that information target how you prepare in terms of knowledge and skills. And I think when you're heading out on placement, just have an open mind, be willing to be curious and do a lot of self-reflection and self-improvement through the process as well. When you're out on placement, it's not kind of necessarily a really closely guided learning experience. We do expect you to be the clinicians to reflect on what you're doing well or where the gaps might be for you, and to act on that as well, as you will have to do as a graduate too. Okay, so the physiotherapy professional experience placement page, which on reflection I think needs renaming, Claire. But we'll come up with something a bit more creative at some stage. The link is up there, or the QR code links to that page as well. So I do encourage you all to scan the code, make yourselves familiar with that page. It's the source of all truth, pretty much, for us. It will cover important things like your compliance checklist, so everything that you need to get done before heading out on placement. Information about uniform, reimbursement for travel and accommodation, and also your fitness for placement, which we'll talk about soon. The little snip down the bottom right here is from our MPT course information page. So there is a placement information module there, which looks like that, which you can look up to find out a bit more about the placement education team, any admin or forms you might need, links for wellbeing, and then placement site-specific information as well. I can also be a source of information, and our placement support team can be a source of information as well as our work integrated learning team, and particularly Chris Araskog, who manages all of the compliance for physio students. So that's Chris's direct email there. She's pretty open to receiving direct emails. So if you have a look at that compliance checklist and you have any problems or queries, you can direct them to Chris, or that more generic CNHS placements email address too. Chris will probably email you. I'm guessing she probably has already, but she will likely send you some emails regarding those compliance requirements. Please read them and answer them as soon as possible. Like I said, there can be some fairly serious consequences if compliance isn't met in time. So those pre-placement requirements, just to emphasise, it is your responsibility to make sure that everything's completed and in date before placement commences, but also for the duration of your placement as well. There are requirements that we set from the university and sort of global requirements for heading out on placement, but some sites may have some additional site-specific requirements as well, which will be communicated to you, and Chris can manage that as well. Like I said, if we don't have those compliance requirements met in time, we may have to cancel the placement, and it may have an impact on your placement topic grade. That's the checklist there. It's going to look very small on the screen. But when you go onto the placement page, you'll see a link to that there. That's what it looks like. So it's all really clearly stepped out what you need to do. So make sure that you allow enough time to complete all of those requirements. The deadline is on the next slide, but it's the 1st of May. So you've got 2 months to get all of that done. Keep up to date with any emails that Chris sends you if things change. Good idea to keep all of the originals for compliance in a portfolio that you can take with you to placement, but also upload anything to InPlace as well, so it's all available there. There may be some venue-specific compliance requirements as requested as well, but they'll be communicated to you directly. And just the last point there, can you make sure that you please do the hand hygiene module ready for your first prac classes next week? Second prac class, sorry, that's Alex at the back. Okay, so, but by next week, would be ideal anyway, and then it's done. So 1st of May, everything needs to be completed so that we've got plenty of time to cross all the T's, dot all the I's, ready to start placement in June. The placement uniform for us consists of the polo shirt that's up there with the Flinders University logo. You need some tailored navy trousers. Pockets can be helpful for storing things. But no jeans, denim or tracksuit pants, and black or navy flat and enclosed shoes, please. You always need to wear your official Flinders Uni placement identification badge, and you do need to comply with infection control policies at all sites. So bare below the elbows is a way that our SA Health sites have kind of promoted this, but I am clearly not at the moment. When you're on placement, no watches, no jewellery other than one plain band with no stones in it, or anything else below the elbows, okay? There is a link to order uniforms and name badges from the physiotherapy placement page. Advise that you do order everything early because we do start using your placement uniforms in sim activities and assessments in your first semester topics. All right, fitness for practice. You do need to consider if you have an existing condition or develop an illness or injury or disability that might impede your ability to practice, that you let us know, and there is a form there, the fitness for professional practice form, to be completed if anything changes. So this relates to your physical abilities, but also behavioural, communication, mental, emotional wellbeing as well. This applies to placements, but also your participation in your prac classes as well. So if there's anything that you think might impede your ability to participate, please let us know as soon as possible. Some of the things that we expect are listed up there. So all of that's available on the Physio Professional Experience Placement page as well. I don't know if Claire's mentioned health counselling and disability yet. Briefly, okay. Always good refresh, yep. So the uni does provide free confidential services for students with a disability. So this can be medical condition, mental health, learning difficulty, or anything that might impact on your study. So a lot of you who've already studied at Flinders may be aware of the ability to seek an access plan. I do encourage you to do that if you haven't already, and if you have any concerns, I'll refresh that for the year. In terms of placements, I mean, we still need to see the same competencies developed. So what that looks like on placement may be a little bit different, but I've worked with students directly in the past to discuss in a bit more detail what that might look like. But those supports are there for seeking an access plan, but also if anything changes and you're needing a bit of extra support, free counselling services, anything relating to your health and wellbeing. Okay, so what you need to do now, get started on that compliance checklist if you haven't already. Hand hygiene and infection control ready for week 2 of PMF. Familiarise yourselves with that placement website. So that was the one with the QR code up there before. Order your placement uniform, and please respond or act on any emails from Chris as soon as possible. I see people scanning the QR code. I'll move along in a sec. So that is pretty much all from me. I'll pop this one up again if anyone has any questions you'd like me to answer now. I know that's been a lot of talking from me, but I really wanted to emphasise that placement opportunities in this program can be really excellent. It's unlikely that you will probably experience the diversity of practice that you will in this short time frame again in your career. So lots of opportunities to try out different areas. Like Nhulunbuy, there are some really different immersive experiences that are available to you through this program. So it's a really exciting time, I think, to put your skills into action in lots of different areas. And yeah, that's one of the main things. So let me see if I can do this without messing it up again. All right. Let's present. Okay. Oh. So, are we alone or in groups for all? It varies. So, depending on your placement site, some of the larger ones will take a group of students at a time, but you might be dispersed around areas. So, in public health or in hospitals, for example, there might be, say, 8 of you in the same hospital, but you might be spread across services. or you might be working together with some other students as well. Things like private practice, you're more likely to be on your own. Can we do placement overseas? At the moment, we don't offer any international placements, unfortunately. Can you be a physio assistant while you're studying before getting a license? You can work as a physiotherapy assistant or an allied health assistant concurrently while you're studying here. You don't necessarily need a qualification for that, although I think there is a certificate that you can do in allied health assistance. But a lot of sites, I know particularly I come from an SA Health background, love taking on physio students as allied health assistants while they're studying, because you have some of those core skills in manual handling and some of that knowledge around the intervention that's being provided. So you're kind of a step ahead of other people who aren't studying the same content. What part of the prereqs, like vaccines for placement, should we do now versus what we do when we know where we are placed? Do everything on the checklist for now, and we'll let you know if there's anything to add to that. International students to practice in rural placement. Yes, these opportunities are available to international students, but the funding is slightly different. So if you are an international student and you're interested in a rural placement, come and talk to me at some stage. There's no rush, but we can have a chat about that at some stage. Northern Territory placements, no, you are not responsible for finding and paying for housing. There is accommodation available at all of the sites in the Northern Territory. OT students don't need to undergo a rural placement as they don't receive government funding. We do have funding support for rural placements, so I'm not sure about that. But like I said, there's information available on that website about funding. First block of placements, anyway, international students could have first allocation. I'll give you an opportunity to fly home. I will ask you about your availability for each of those 3 weeks for the 1 week foundational placement. Again, I can't guarantee anything. We've got to fit everyone in somewhere, but I will certainly take that into account if I can. Can you do placement at an acute hospital you work at? Yes, it's been done before. I think I've answered that about physio student with you for placement. Are the Northern Territory Vic placements by student requests only? I mean, we put it out there for people who are interested to let us know, and we would certainly allocate to those students in the first instance. But you may be allocated an interstate placement even if you haven't specifically requested that. Do we have to wear shorts or tank tops for religious reasons? I might have to defer that question.
They come and check with us. We can work around you with like those sorts of things around like what that means for practical with you. So just chat with us things, and Alex is here as well, and topics and stuff like that to be able to work together.
Yep.
But not not necessarily like we've got we'll find a way that you can participate in a way that you're comfortable.
Thank you. Yep. More common to do a rural placement in the second year since you would have had more experience beforehand. I mean, there are more opportunities for placement in the second year, so technically yes, but some students will head out on rural placement this year as well. So there's opportunities across both years. Uniform to uni, not on a regular day. People like Alex and your other topic coordinators will let you know when uniform is required, normally around assessments and simulation activities, because that's when we are getting you to be the practicing clinicians. Are you expected to pay for housing on rural placements, partial or all? So again, there is accommodation available at most of our rural sites. We will also ask you if you've got any family or friend connections, people that you could stay with in rural areas. We do have access to some placements that don't have accommodation, but we're not going to force you to go somewhere where there's not accommodation. What else am I up to? How soon will we expect information on our placements? Good question. I will survey you probably at some stage in April. For your 1-week placement and 5-week placement at the end of this year. So I'll seek to gain some more information from you before we do any allocation. So I'd hope to let you know in May-ish. I will reach out to you guys, so either by an announcement probably on the course information page with a link. So you'll all be able to go in, and I normally send a few reminders as well. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
If we foresee like potential issue with, say, a remote placement, we've got connections that might impact.
Yep.
Would you rather us come to you for allocations or just wait and see that?
I'll pop a section for that in the survey as well. So, people who've got dependent children and things like that, we're not going to send you away for 5 weeks. So there'll be an opportunity to let us know about that in the survey as well, or any conflicts of interest too. Yeah? Yep, so this year I'll send out the survey probably in April sometime and hopefully be able to confirm the placements in May for you, at least for your 1-week placement, and then it might be a little bit later for the ones at the end of the year. Normally what we say is about 6 weeks out from placement is the latest that I would let you know, normally a bit before then if I can. And then for second year, I'll send out another survey again at the end of your first year for some more information. Normally we try and let you know about rural allocations for second year by the end of this year. So it gives you lots of planning ahead time to know if you might be travelling next year. And then we might normally we do first semester placements that are metro. We'll let you know at the end of this year. And then so for the current second years now, let them know about April for their second semester metro placements. Yeah.
I was looking at the NDIS checks and stuff like that. They were asking for what number is your rural placement thing, or it was asking details for the actual placement itself. So I was wondering when I was clicking that, should we already have some of the details for the placements or something like that?
No, not yet. If you're unsure about any of those things or it won't let you proceed, maybe just check that with Chris Ariskog in the WILD team. Yep. All right, cool. Lovely to meet you guys. I'll see you in PMF in a couple of weeks, I think. And yeah, looking forward to working with you. Thank you, everyone. I know it's a lot of information and it feels really uncertain, but it does sort itself out. It does all seem to come together. And of course, you have a chance to chat with the final year student representatives this afternoon, and certainly that's another great reason to, perhaps engage in the mentoring program and stuff like that, so you can hear sort of their experience of how they've gone through these processes and things like that as well. But it's my pleasure to introduce to you Casey. So Casey is the branch manager. That's right. Okay. Branch manager of the South Australian branch of the Australian Physio Association. So Casey's going to talk you through what the APA is, what it means for you as a student, and all those opportunities from there. So thanks, Casey.
Although, real important question, have you had lunch yet?
No.
Oh, God.
Trying to...
All right. This is a tough slot to have. So I'm going to really, really keep it really quick because I know that you were just getting chockers with your info today. But I really kind of fight for a position to get in front of you on this day because the Australian Physiotherapy Association is external to uni. We sit outside of our university. We are your national peak body representing physiotherapy from the time that you're a student right through to when you retire. I'd just like to acknowledge the country on which I stand on here today and tell you who I am. So my name is Casey. I am the branch manager of SA, and I am also the branch manager of the Northern Territory, which is really great for you guys since I just heard you get to do rural placements up in the Territory. We have a branch council up there. I know Heather Malcolm very well, who is at the university up there. But I've been with the APA for around 13 years now. So I know a little bit. I'm not a physio by trade, but I almost feel like I could be. But any sort of questions that you have throughout your time as a student, and then when you graduate, so on, please feel free to message me, call me. Our branch is actually located in Kent Town, which is just on the eastern suburbs of the city, right next to the Maid Hotel and a few other hotels as well. So it's not as scary as you think to sort of come into the branch if you want to start getting outside of this building. So what is a professional association? We are not a union. We are, like I said, like a peak body, which you choose to be a member of. But what's really great as a student, it's free. I know you're all smart. You've gotten into this degree. It's really hard. So you have no excuse not to sign up for student membership. Get on your laptop now. I want you to get onto the APA website. There will be a QR code and sign up. You get access to everything that a fully paid physiotherapist does, but for free while you're actually a student. We advocate for physiotherapy. I was sort of thinking to myself, what could I really tell you that might sort of grip you a little bit about what we do behind the scenes? We're everywhere. We're in the government. We're at Parliament House. We're in Canberra. I only just got a phone call today about the pain unit at the Royal Adelaide Hospital being moved, and then it could move again, and then, oh gosh, it actually might even close down. The Hampstead pool out at the Hampstead Rehab is currently shut down. We're advocating to get it reopened. Things like Medicare, we're pushing for a Medicare provider number for physiotherapy so members of the public can go and see a physiotherapist under Medicare. It's a great time to be a student, to be a physiotherapist right now. You're in the best profession in the world. You actually get to touch people, help people, and make a difference. And the APA are with you every single step of the way. How we help you at university? Well, for free, you get access to student events such as taping workshops, Pilates workshops, paediatric workshops. They're all free to attend. There is free online webinars aimed at students, but you also get to come to any lecture that one of our special interest groups put on. So in your last 2 years of this degree, it's actually probably really good to start getting out, extending yourself, start meeting people. Like I said, it's for free. That is the QR code. I really hope it's working. Oh gosh, you've got out your phones.
Is it the same as last year?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's on my office door as well when we go upstairs. If it's not gonna.
But technology is, the APA, we're getting better. It's not our strong suit, as you'll probably tell when you have a bit of a look at our website. But it's getting there. It's better than what it was. So with the APA, like I said, we are, all of our funding comes from membership. The more members we have, the more voice we have, the more we can do. We have around 36,000 members and we are growing. So yeah, hopefully our technology gets better to catch up with that. That is our website. There's a lot sort of on there. A lot of it is hard to find, but there is students under the membership. And mostly sort of anything that's current is on the front page, but you'll also register for student events via the website. When I said we have, I think we've got over 26 now, national groups. When I first started in physio, I really thought it was just sports and musculoskeletal, and I think members of the public sort of do as well. It's vast. We cover every single area of the body, and we also in SA have committees that cover every single area. So again, if you'd like to start getting a bit more active and would like to join one of those committees, we are always happy to have students on there. You have a voice right now. You've probably got more ideas than some of our more seasoned physios, so please feel free to share it and become involved. Like I said, we have all different sort of opportunities for students here in SA. We will always send an email out via the university and also via me as well. We're really lucky we have the APA Scientific Conference being held here in Adelaide in October. For students, it means that if you would like to volunteer, I will send out an expression of interest. Please put your hand up to volunteer at this conference. You get to attend for free. It runs over 3 days. Yes, you are there to help, but you also can, once you've done helping, sort of slot in and try and listen to as many sort of talks you can. It's really good fun. It's at the Convention Centre. We held it here in 2019. The reason why we've got it back again here is because it was so successful. If you identify under any of these special interest groups, we have advisory committees. They are growing, and we want to make sure that we represent absolutely everyone. So if you want to hear it from a member, I'm not sure, she speaks for like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, maybe not.
I'll
We
skip
can have
this
a look
one.
onto it. But
Yeah. So we're going to skip through poor Victoria, but Victoria was a member here at Flinders. Absolutely exceptional. She won the National Student Award. She went on to become member of Branch Council. She's now up in Darwin because the lifestyle at the moment. But she is just really, really exceptional. You should be really proud that she went to Flinders. So this will be available for you to watch. It's just her giving her advice, but we're not going to listen to it today. So how to get involved? I would go onto our Instagram page, the APA Instagram. It is updated all the time on what we're doing, what is happening, and a little bit sort of more about us. Oh, gee, that was quick. There you go. So also with your student membership, you get insurance as well. So we cover you for when you're working on student placements, when you're working within your still student scope. So that's a little bit more complicated than that, but just know that we also offer you insurance across many modalities. Other than that, we do already have a student rep from Flinders, but always looking for more to represent on our student committee. But yeah, you've had a lot of information. Just really, really nice to meet you, and I will get to sort of see you throughout the next 2 years. But any questions, flick on my way. And congratulations for getting into the course. You guys are amazing. They really are. They really are. You are.
Thanks so much, Casey. I've known Casey because did I job interview you for your APA job? I did. Only because I started as a student member. I came on because, let's be honest, really honest moment. I was like, I should get something for my CV. Not a great reason to get involved in something, but it is. But then you realise that you learn a lot from it. So I went on a student committee, and then I'd been out working for a year, and then one of my academics called me up and said, Claire, I think you should come on branch council. And I'm like, what's that? She's like, here's the form, fill it in. Yeah. I turned up to my first meeting and she's like, Claire, I think you should be like vice president, but don't worry, we'll find someone else to be co-vice president with you, and they'll have to be president first. And so they did. And so then I sat in...
I think Claire being our youngest president, no, I know she has, the youngest president ever.
Of the SA.
Of the SA branch. Oh, just anywhere,
I don't know.
actually.
Anyway, somehow, because I didn't get out the way fast enough, so I've had a go at president of the branch. I've been on the cardio committee since then. Anyway, it's really so many opportunities to network that I've managed to get involved with, and it's probably the choosing not just to be a member and just to absorb, but to be able to get involved. So I've been on the cardio committee, chaired the committee for the cardio for the conference when it was in Adelaide back in 2019. I'm not chairing that committee this year, but I'm on the committee for the conference. Got a speaking gig at the conference. I'm deputy chair of the the grant review committee for research. There's just so many opportunities to get involved, and they're the best, and to network. And so that's been really helpful. So anyway, it can start small with I'll just do this for my CV, and before you know it, you get sucked into all sorts of fun things. Yeah. We're 100.
You're around 100. It is really who you know, what you do to stand out. Membership goes a long way.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Casey. Good to see you again. And I'll see you next month at Branch Council. Awesome. So it's all right. Final couple of slides just to wrap up for the afternoon. So If you're new to Flinders, hopefully you've been sent, like the 6 steps, welcome into Flinders to help you sort of get onboarded from there. If you need a student ID card, that is separate to your name badge, so you do need both. So your ID card's different to the name badge for placement from there. Hopefully you've obviously found your way on campus here. I believe, usually they make parking free over the first sort of week kind of getting settled in, but there is information on different ways that may help streamline your journey to and from campus. And then I just need to go through what we're going to be doing for the afternoon session. So we've got a solid, so we'll reconvene at 2, so it's a nice solid hour-long lunch break. What I will give you is, if you want to, and it'll be good at some stages, I've just got like a little campus bingo. So I've put some of the key places on here that you probably want to have a practice at finding and having a look around the place. So if you want somewhere to go and to get some steps in and stuff like that, go around with somebody and, and sort of help try and work out that sort of self-tour of campus, if you like, for some of the key things. But I'll catch you just as we walk out the door. And what I'll do is I'll give you a coloured sticky note because we're going to go through 3 different activities this afternoon. So if you get, the pink one, you'll start in, you want to maybe write down the names of the buildings, but because otherwise I realised I did this last year and it seemed to work, but I can't remember what part did I not write down. Anyway, pink, you're going to go to W, which is Sturt West 406. So that's up on level 4, and that's where you'll start with me, and we'll go through, some couple of other wrap-up things from this morning. I'll collect your consent forms from you if you don't want to give them to me yet, or you want to have a look through them. We'll do the mentoring program stuff. If you're orange, you go to S 406. And that's where you're going to go meet the student representatives and they'll have a chat to you in there. And if you get green, you go to S407A, which is basically just next door. And that's where you've got your semester 1 topic coordinators to go in there and where we'll do your photo roll. And then we'll direct you between the rooms. The plan is to have an earlier, 3:30 finish and just sort of spend half an hour through each of those rooms there. So as long as you've got those rooms, before you walk out, I'll just tag us out there so we can split out from there. So after today, do check your enrolments. Make sure you start looking at your flow page material because you can start watching your lectures for next week and everything now. Kelly's given you the placement information. I will need to, and we're checking that I get those consent forms from everyone. I'll put out reminders, but if you want to be a student representative, contact me. I'll talk about mentoring this afternoon and you can, look at membership of any of those other associations. All right, so I'm going to run out with my sticky notes and tour things. But thank you, everybody. We'll see you in a little bit.